We're just a few minutes late starting this evening. Ms Smart is just taking care of some important negotiations. As soon as she's back, we'll start the meeting. Thank you. Good evening. I declare the meeting open at 6:03 this evening. Good evening, councillors, staff, ladies and gentlemen. This meeting today is being held on Wajak Noongar Budja, and I would like to acknowledge and pay my respects to elders past, present and future. I thank all past and present members of the community that have supported the city to better understand and value Noongar culture within the city of Wanneroo. I invite you to bow your head in prayer. Lord, we thank you for blessing our city, our community and our council. Guide us in all our decision-making to act fairly, without fear or favour, and with compassion, integrity, wisdom and honesty. May we show true leadership, be inclusive of all, and guide all of the city's people and many families to a prosperous future that all may share. We ask this in your name. Amen. Firstly, this evening, I'd like to formally welcome our new Chief Executive Officer, Bill Parker. Mr Parker has worked in local government for over 20 years, coming to us from his recent role of Chief Executive Officer at the City of Nedlands. He has also been the CEO of the Shire of Jerramungup and the Shire of Denmark and the General Manager of Corporate Services at the City of Perth. He has a wealth of experience in many disciplines, and we are fortunate to have such an experienced person to lead the City of Wanneroo into the future and through the many local government challenges ahead. On behalf of the Council and the City, we all look forward to working with you. I also take this opportunity to formally thank Nolene Jennings, who dedicated the past few months to the role of Acting Chief Executive Officer and has now returned to her substantive role as Director Corporate Strategy and Performance. Nolene's leadership and extensive experience ensured the City's emergency response teams and administration met the community's needs during the recent Marigunup fires. Nolene led the City with clear direction, strong leadership and poise and compassion, which we are all very thankful for. The recovery work is still ongoing to support those affected by the fires. In addition to managing the crisis, Nolene has provided outstanding leadership to the organisation during her time as Acting Chief Executive Officer. Nolene's commitment and experience has ensured that the City of Wanneroo has maintained its excellent standards of customer service and delivery, along with progressing many of the City's key projects and initiatives. Thank you, Nolene. We are all appreciative of your leadership during a very busy time. And I would like to also personally say I was really grateful having her stand at my side working together through the fires and working to help the community. She was there the whole time next to me. Thank you so much, Nolene. Please note that the audio-visual proceedings of tonight's meeting will be live broadcast online with the exception of matters discussed behind closed doors. The broadcast of the proceedings of the meeting can be accessed live and on demand through the City of Wanneroo YouTube channel. Please note that Councillor Bronwyn Smith has been authorised by Council to attend this ordinary council meeting by electronic means in accordance with the details as signed in the request documentation submitted on the request form dated the 21st of November 2023. Councillor Smith, will you now make your declaration prior to participating in this meeting?
Thank you, Mayor. In accordance with Section 14CA5, 5, I, Bronwyn Smith, declare that I can maintain confidentiality during the meeting or the closed part of the meeting as the case requires whilst attending this council meeting electronically. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. Your declaration will be recorded in the minutes of this meeting. Apologies and leave of absence. Councillor Wright is on his way from work. I think he's caught up in traffic at the moment, and so he will get here as soon as possible. But other than that, we have no apologies. And no requests for leave of absence have been received as well. Public question time. The following general rules apply to public question time and statement time. Public questions and statements should only relate to the business of the local government and should not be a personal statement or opinion. Only questions relating to matters affecting the local government will be considered at an ordinary council meeting, and only questions that relate to the purpose of the meeting will be considered at a special council meeting. Questions may be taken on notice and responded to after the meeting. Questions may not be directed at a specific council member or a city employee. Questions or statements are not to be framed in such a way as to reflect adversely on a particular council member or a city employee. To ensure the meeting progresses effectively, attendees are requested to refrain from repetitive comments on matters that have already been discussed. First priority will be given to persons who are asking questions relating to items on the current council meeting agenda, and second priority will be given to public statements. Only public statements regarding items on the council agenda under consideration will be heard. Each person seeking to ask questions or make a statement during public question and statement time may address the council for a maximum of 3 minutes each. Please also ensure mobile phones are switched off or on silent. We have some questions that have already been sent in to us, and so I will read them and read the responses. So they're on the record. Item ASO2 1123 Nangara Road upgrade from Hartman Drive to Mirrabooka Avenue, Wangara. Community engagement results and land requirements. The question is from Ms E. Sequira from Wangara. We attended the information session held in May 2023, which confirmed that the land acquisition on our property, 217 Nangara Road, had not changed from the endorsed structure plan. However, we had another question that remained unanswered about the house on the property, home to my mother since 1985. The future boundaries and fence are expected to be very close to the house, within 2 to 3 metres, and we would like to seek clarity on whether the house would be allowed to remain. Note, this house predates all current road upgrade plans from a time when this area was rural. The response from the Director of Assets, the Nangara Road widening requirement is anticipated to result in the existing dwelling at 217 Nangara Road being located approximately 2 to 3 metres from the new road reserve alignment. Existing structures that do not meet the minimum setbacks may need to seek development approval for any variations to those standards or be modified to the extent that they comply. This can only be determined through a development application process if it's required. Further to the dwelling setback, Nangara Road is identified as an other regional road. Direct vehicle access onto regional roads is restricted for safety reasons. It is likely through the widening process that the existing driveway to the dwelling from Nangara Road will need to be closed and relocated to Excellence Drive. On item PTO 11023, request by Yanchep Community Men's Shed for a permanent home, and that is from Mr Gow from Yanchep. The progress on finding accommodation for the Yanchep Community Men's Shed. That was his request to find out the progress. The response from the Acting Director of Community Place is, Administration and Ward Councillors met with Yanchep Community Men's Shed today on the 12th of December 2023 to provide an update on 10 Stevenage Street, Yanchep, and other considerations following PTO 11023, request by Yanchep Community Men's Shed for a permanent home. Administration has undertaken due diligence investigations into 10 Stevenage Street, Yanchep, based on the steps required when considering a property under the Strategic Land Policy. The investigation has concluded that the purchase does not align with the Strategic Land Policy, therefore is not a viable option. The City could remain open to the purchase of a site suitable for Yanchep Community Men's Shed. However, there is no other site currently identified as an option. And further, there is no budgeted funding source or policy position that would support this approach. It is acknowledged that there are limited city-managed land options available in Yanchep for a community men's shed. Since 2016, administration has worked closely with Yanchep Community Men's Shed to investigate potential land options, with none determined to be viable at this stage. However, administration will revisit previous sites investigated to see if circumstances have changed. The City will continue to support the Yanchep Men's Shed advocacy efforts to federal and state government for land or construction funding and local developers for suitable land allocation. Administration and Yanchep Community Men's Shed will continue to meet regularly for progress updates by both parties. On item PQ03-1223, which is the proposed lease agreement and ground lease and development application for the former Quinns Rocks Caravan site, part lot 211, Quinns Road, Mindari, from Mrs K. Wheatcroft of Quinns Rocks. How is access proposed to be restricted to the old Quinns Caravan Park site? I don't see any fences along the foreshore reserve and public footpath in the proposal. The response by the Director of Corporate Strategy and Performance. Low-scale fencing, like what is currently in place, is proposed to be incorporated along the foreshore and public footpath. Public access will be provided to the lawn area via the designated footpath in the west corner of the site. The lawn area and accommodation will be separately distinguished by a small retaining wall delineating the two areas. The remaining eastern and northern boundaries will be fenced in a traditional manner to ensure that no encroachment occurs in the adjoining bushland. We have a statement from Mr G Jones from Quinns Rocks about CSO 6/12/23, the proposed lease agreement for lease and ground lease and development application for former Quinns Rocks Caravan Park site, part lot 211, Quinns Road, Mindari. I tendered this submission in support of the Quinns Rocks development at the foreshore of Quinns Beach and being part of 211 Quinns Road, lot 211. As a local resident of over 20 years, my view is that the support of the redevelopment by the community is vital to ensure successful outcome for the benefit of all. The area has remained vacant for over 10 years since the original caravan park was closed. It was always the intention to operate accommodation for camping, caravans, etc., and it was never set aside to expand the Quinns Mindari Surf Life Saving Club, nor just for an expansion of car parking. Over that time, there has been plenty of discussion with little outcome. The last number of years has seen the area used for overflow parking at the behest of the Quinns Mindari Surf Life Saving Club. This has allowed the area to be used for undesirable antisocial purposes. Evidence shows extensive drug and alcohol use, burnouts and illegal car activities, rubbish dumping, including furniture, drug paraphernalia, including a huge amount of nangs, bottles, cans, fast food containers, etc. After some effort, the council started closing the gate at night, but the area is an eyesore that our locality does not need. By supporting the redevelopment proposal, I can only see the benefit to Quinns Rocks and a great improvement to the area as follows. implements a measure to restrict the current antisocial and associated behaviour immediately next to a reserve and adjacent to other businesses, promotes business and growth in line with tourism and the original intended usage for the site, complements the other small businesses and brings consumers to the area, provides community facilities supported by private enterprise, supports the economic strategy for the city, remembering that the city must act commercially to enable it to also support the community, supports progress and development in line with growth for our state, brings social, economic and community benefit opportunity, expands the demographic of people who can use the area. Not everyone is part of the Quins Mindarie Surf Lifesaving Club. As noted by the Council, the Quins Mindarie Surf Lifesaving Club are heavily sponsored by the city with funding, facilities and premises heavily supported. It is not equitable to only consider their needs over the needs of the wider community in relation to Quins foreshore development. I would like my voice to be heard in support of the redevelopment proposal currently being considered at tonight's council meeting. I have the public question time register in front of me, and the first person on the public question time register is Mr. Tasker. Mr. Tasker, would you like to come to the podium and give us the suburb you live in and ask your question? And you're making a statement as well, I understand.
Thank you, Mayor. Welcome again, CEO Parker, and members of the council, the ward councillors and the press and the public gallery. As I've spoken before, I'm coming very much from a heart and legacy perspective. Like others here, we personally love the Caravan Park site, and I think you need to know that. It's something that really is of value to us all. It's a rare piece of beachside land, and has had a long community consideration to be used for public purposes, not for commercial ones. Historically, our own kids learnt to swim at Quins when we had Fred Stubbs Park. And those of you who have been around a while will know that that's an area just north of the existing Caravan site, and there was 2 lines of sand dunes there, as I recall. It was a large adjacent beachside land for barbecues, socialising, play and picnic under the trees in the dunes. All gone. And there have been many refurbishments of that area, but the whole area is dead. It's in the water. We've got nothing left in our neck of the woods except the Caravan site. I would ask, can you tell us if there's any good community reasons for commercial glamping? For the next 21 years, we've got to face this. Whatever way it goes, it's 21 years. It's a long time, and it will see most of us out, or a lot of us anyway. You know, we've got hundreds of thousands of reasons. Those reasons are people, Wanneroo families from all wards, kids, couples, the surf lifesavers. I don't think we can not estimate the value of this organisation, like the volunteer fire service, the SCS, and the water rescue people. This is an essential service. It's not a sports club per se, and I think that has been said a couple of times, and I resent that it's classed that way. Seniors like me, I've been around since I was a kid, before electricity and water, would you believe? I know the area well. Teenagers, picnickers, swimmers and surfers, schools and community groups. This is reserved as parks and recreation. I don't know how that fits in with commercial glamping. At meetings like this, people often come in opposition to things they don't want, they tell me. This is true. We don't want glamping, it's quite clear. The glamping company was the only result of the original expression of interest in advertising the land usage.
Mr. Tasker, you have had 3 minutes. I'll give you another 30 seconds. It is 3 minutes.
Right, I'm
Public
going.
question time.
As said,
Thank
would
you.
you all support Mayor Aitken's message in What's Happening, the Council's own magazine. It's a leadership statement. We have an important responsibility to work towards improving the everyday lives of our residents. Please honour that promise. Look, at 21 years as a lifetime, your positive legacy lies in the support of public open space. I wish you a happy Christmas and prosperous New Year, and I would hope that you give the community a present which we would love to have. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr Tasker. The next on the question time is Mr Malcolm Gow. Mr Gow, can you come and stand at the podium and give us the suburb you live in? Thank you.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, councillors and senior officers of the City and Yanchep Community Men's Shed. Would like to welcome Bill Parker to the association. Thanks for receiving my report. I realise the huge number of agenda items that the Council are asked to consider tonight, but the YCMS and Yanchep and Two Rocks RSL needs urgent help. I spent hours looking through the annual report of all the wonderful things that the City has achieved in 2022-23, but one of the items that does not appear anywhere in this report is the excellent facility that the men's shed provide for the many thousands of senior citizens who benefit either from being members or indirectly through their families from the activities promoted in these sheds throughout Wanneroo. It's as though this section of the population does not exist. We at the Yanchep Community Men's Shed have created over the past 7 years, as have other sheds, even longer, a community place where men and more recently women can come and enjoy useful interest, creating many varieties of projects, and one of the main items to enjoy the camaraderie by closely working together to improve the health and welfare of members and their direct relatives and friends. The City have had opportunities to help the YCMS and to obtain a permanent workshop and community hub on a number of occasions over the past 7 years, which have not been borne fruit. At the Sports and Social Club, the possible purchase of an ideal property at Fred's hardware store, and more recently, the provision of an unsuitable restricted site at Oldham Park. There is another opportunity now at number 10 Stevenage Street, where an ideal property of 15,000 square metres is on the market for $1.5 million, which could not only provide facilities for YCMS, but could provide a headquarters for the Yanchep and Two Rocks sub-branch of the RSL. A small central room is included in this block, which could be used by other groups. So my question is, we at YCMS, with the support of the RSL, are therefore asking for the City of Wanneroo to either purchase the property outright or offer a substantial financial grant, which could be topped up by grants from other related sources, for example, Lottery West, DVA, federal and state governments, for YCMS and RSL to establish a community hub right in the centre of Yanchep, which would eliminate the City from any future demands on their resources for the foreseeable future.
Thank you, Mr Gow. Mr Clem, would you like to...
Could I just continue, Madam Mayor?
You've actually had 3 minutes and 40 seconds.
I was just going to comment that we had an excellent meeting with your officer, Rowan, this morning, and it was very fruitful, and I look forward to continual discussions with him.
Thank you, Mr Gow. Mr Clem, would you like to speak to this?
Thank you, Mayor. Probably not much more to add. You read out the response to Mr Gow's question earlier, and that covered pretty much all of it, other than to say, yes, we did meet with Mr Gow today and representatives from the group, and we have committed to following up with some more meetings with them to continue discussions around how we could move forward with this.
Thank you, Mr Clem. Thank you, Mr Gow.
Thank you, Wanneroo.
Thank you. Tony Warwick on CS06, if you could come to the podium and give us your suburb that you live in. Thank you, Mr Warwick.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, esteemed councillors, senior officers and Mr Parker as a new CEO. I live in Mindarie and my questions relate to agenda item number 8, CS06, 12 of 23. I don't intend to reiterate public statements or comments I have made previously in this room, also submissions to the council, but I would like to ask two particular questions of all councillors and the Mayor. Firstly, are all councillors and the Mayor to publicly place on the record that they do not have either an actual or perceived conflict of interest in this proposal?
Can I just say that you are not allowed to ask questions to bring councillors or the Mayor or personal questions about this. We have already declared our fiducial responsibility, and I can declare and will tell you I am getting no financial advantage through this project at all, and I'm sure my fellow councillors can as well. We don't have any business relationships or any negotiations with the proponent or any part of the organisation that's happening. And this is very disrespectful to us as a council to imply this. I want to make that very, very clear, and verging on insulting. So if you would like to go to your second question, that would be very good. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And it's not meant to be insulting, and it's said asked with respect. The second question is that, again, are all councillors and the Mayor prepared to put on the record that their vote on the matter reflects the wishes of their constituents and not the position of any party or vested interest group to which they may or may not be aligned?
All of my councillors vote in accordance with the legislation, which says that we vote impartially and we make an informed decision with the information in front of us at the time of the ordinary council meeting. And that is the answer to your question, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Parker?
Apologies, Mayor. I'm not sure if I'm allowed to ask this, but I know I would be more than happy to answer both of those questions, and I have a feeling that my fellow councillors might do the same, but that is up to them. But from my own part, sitting here, watching you and everybody else today, I can absolutely answer your questions. Absolutely nothing.
Thank you.
One other thing, if there is any form of impartiality, every councillor and every mayor and every director within here who are involved has to make an impartiality declaration. If they do not make an impartiality declaration, there is no conflict of interest at all. Okay?
I understand
Thank
that.
you.
As I said, Mayor, perceived or actual, but I understand that. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms Guys, you're next on the list. Would you like to come and ask your question and give us the suburb you live in? Thank you.
Diane Guys, Mindarie. New CEO, welcome to Wanneroo. Good luck. I've got two questions. One, however, is something that I'd like you to consider when you get to the item and debate, so it doesn't actually require an immediate answer, because that would be inappropriate. The Quins Mindarie Surflight Club provides an essential service and has repeatedly requested additional ground space to meet their needs and community demand. The club membership will not diminish with the advent of Alkimos Surflight Saving Club, as members will not travel north and demand will continue to exceed the current footprint. It's an award-winning club and members are voting with their feet. Given this proposal effectively landlocks the Quins Rocks Mindarie Surf Life Saving Club, Will council consider postponing their decision in relation to the lease of site 211 until a new plan can be designed to allow for expansion of the club at the very least? I don't expect an answer, Madam Mayor, because I understand you have to have the debate, and I'm hoping that councillors will take on board this very important request. This one, however, is my second question, and I would like an answer. Should council vote to proceed with this ludicrous lease proposal, what arrangements has council made for beach parking over the summer months whilst construction on the site is underway? If any of you have been down there recently, you realise that the overflow parking is full every weekend. So I don't quite see how this is going to work. So I think this deserves an answer on behalf of our community if you're going to proceed with this lease proposal.
Thank you, Ms Guise. Ms Jennings, do you have a response to that?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. We have had to think about this too because we wondered, we're looking at the timing of various things, but we want to make sure that overflow parking is available over the summertime, so we'll arrange for that to be able to occur until we have other parking in place. So it has been a consideration, Madam. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Ms Jennings. Do you have another question?
Can I have a
Ms
bit more
Gomes?
detail about how that's actually going to work, given the construction site will be at the entry to the overflow car parking area?
Ms Jennings?
Thank you, Mayor. Obviously, the detail of the operation will occur a bit sooner to the actual time, but our timing, we consider that the summer months will allow us to still do that, and particularly in the weekend, which is the timing that we open the car park now. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Ms Jennings. Thank you, Ms Guise. Okay, Mr Goodwin. Mr Goodwin, do you have a question? And if you could just give us your suburb, and that's on CS06 as well.
Good evening. Thank you, Madam Mayor and councillors. My name is Stephen Goodwin. I live in Mindarie. I just want to make a brief statement in relation to the Gwen's Caravan Park development proposal. I realise the vote tonight is all about whether to approve the lease or not, and the vote in relation to whether to go ahead with the tourist development was taken in August. But I would cast back to that vote in August, and we recollect that the vote was evenly split and only carried on a casting vote. I'd just like to say to the councillors, and particularly to the new councillors, and I have written to all of you, it's not too late to reconsider this decision and call a halt to this development. There's been widespread community opposition to this for quite a while. The council does talk a lot about the widespread community engagement by way of a couple of feedback surveys, but there was a petition put to council about the same time back in August which had over 1,500 signatures on it, which is actually more than the sum of the two other feedback surveys that were put together, and that was overwhelmingly against this development. I myself was involved in sort of door knocking quite a lot of people in the community to get signatures on the petition, and only one person out of more than 70 people I spoke to actually favoured the development. So I believe that the feedback that the council has received through the survey is not particularly representative of the feelings of the community. I think there's a huge groundswell of opposition in the community to this development. I would acknowledge that the proponent has modified his proposal somewhat, which makes it slightly better. But in my view, it's still second best. The option that the community is asking for is public space that we can all use and enjoy. And we often quote Mullaloo as a great example of what could be done. What's being proposed by the proponent now is better than what he started off with, but it's still nothing like what we could have. I think there's an opportunity here for us, for the council really, to leave a legacy of something that will last for generations. And we are talking generations here. 21 years is a whole generation. So we have an opportunity to get it right now. And I would urge the council to think deeply about whether we just need to stop this whole thing at this point in time and go back to the drawing board and listen to the community, because I can assure you the community is very much against the proposal for this development. I'm not a surf club member, and you can tell by my physique, I'm not a surf club swim coach or anything like that. I don't particularly use the swim club, the surf club, but I do very much support them and appreciate their efforts, keeping me safe when I'm in the water, for example. So it's not just the surf club that's pushing for stopping of this development. The community in general is very much against it. So I would like to urge the council just to pause and think about this, because I don't believe there's been a fair engagement with the community, and that I think the decision that we got to in August was flawed. And just ask you to pause on it when you come to the vote on the lease, please. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr Goodwin. Sean Whitehead, would you like to come down to the podium to ask your question? And it's about CS06. And if you could just give us your name and the suburb you live in. Thank you, Mr Whitehead.
Good evening, Sean Whitehead, Quinns Mindarie resident. I'd like to start with a statement, if it's okay. The statement's really around inclusion. And inclusion's a really hard thing to define. But you know good inclusion when you see it. You see that good inclusion in schools, you see it in the community. But it's really hard to define. And I just want to applaud this gentleman here. Men's sheds, they bring a community together. They bring an aspect of that community into feeling they belong. And I really support, and good luck to you with your application. A surf club, it's got something for everybody. That's the thing with it. It brings something for everybody within that community. Be it being a lifeguard, be it a parent who brings a child down to learn to swim there, be it first aid, be it whatever aspect it is. But there's near 1,000 members there at this point. My question is really, how much engagement has there been with community volunteer groups in the area to look at their plans around expansion and offering their services? Has that been considered? I do know representatives from the city came to the club in recent weeks as part of what was agreed by councillors last time about engaging with us and looking at a development plan. So I'm wondering, have you been given the feedback from that visit so you can make informed decisions today on whether what you are voting on puts barriers and puts a glass ceiling on that development, or whether what the feedback from your professionals within the city has given you allows the club to expand and offer a community service in the way we want to, whilst the caravan park is there. And I will add a statement on the end of that. I'm not against glamping. I'm not against the development of tourism within Western Australia. I'm not against the development of them things in the city of Wanneroo. Just where that site is perhaps isn't the right site to allow all them community aspects to offer really good inclusion in the city of Wanneroo. So my question is, have you been able to see the feedback from the representatives from the city of Wanneroo from their visit?
Thank you, Mr Whitehead. Mr Clem, would you like to speak to that? Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. So we've met on a couple of occasions with the Surf Club this year, back in March and also recently in December. And the intent of those meetings was to begin the discussions with the club around formalising a needs assessment and some feasibility studies regarding what they believe they need to continue their club successfully as they are at the moment. So that is still a work in progress, and we will continue to work with the club to finalise what that might look like and draw that into, take that through to concept plans and that kind of process, which is our normal community facility planning process. And I think Director Jennings would like to also add some more on that. Mayor? Thank
you, Mr Clem. Ms Jennings?
Thank you, Mayor. There was a question about engagement, and certainly the Quinns Mindarie Surf Life Saving Club was a key stakeholder in all the engagement that we undertook, including meetings with the actual group that undertook the community engagement. Plus, we had the Surf Life Saving Club on the top of our list for any feedback that occurred during the whole process over the last 2 years. And certainly have been meeting, first I actually met with them and Paul Greer with them in October 2022 as well, and we talked about the potential to meet with the proponent because the proponent was more than willing to talk about actually accommodating anything that the surf club might need. So the good news is that's likely to happen now over the summer, so over this summer. So we're looking forward to having that discussion so that we can see how the parties can work together. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Ms Jennings. And all of those meetings have been included in our report. Is that correct, Ms Jennings?
And yes, in previous reports, and I also have some information I was given out today about the last year's worth of meetings. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms Jennings.
Is there an opportunity to respond to any of that? Do I have time left?
You've got 30 seconds.
I've got 30 seconds, okay. Yes, Ms Jennings, I do agree that there has been engagement with the club. However, as a serving board member for the last 3 years, there was no one who came to a board meeting to address the board of the club around that. So that would be a statement from myself. Board members have been met, but not the board in general. So when we're looking at engagement and we're looking at giving a rounded idea, just like we're giving here, then maybe that engagement wasn't there. But I thank you for your time. And as I say, we do trust in you guys to make the right decision for the community. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr Whitehead. And can I just say, I'm sure if Mr Clem and Ms Jennings got an invitation from the board when they were having a meeting, they would be very happy to work with the board when they had a meeting.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you for that.
Ms Parker.
Madam Mayor, I actually just believe really strongly that we should be sharing all information, and thank you for Rowan Clem giving us all of this information tonight. Is it possible to share with everybody tonight the information that we have in front of us as to the dates that the club has in fact been contacted? Whether I'm happy to give my memo through to everybody to have a read, or can we read it out just so that we can actually fill them in on when it has happened?
Ms Jennings, would you like to do that on behalf, because it was admin that met with most of the time?
Sorry, Mayor, are you asking to distribute it? Because I mean, it's not confidential, so.
Yes, we can distribute it if you think that's okay. Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, the next person for question time is Ms Sangalli. If you could come to the podium and give us the suburb you live in. Thank you, Ms Sangalli.
Natalie Sangalli, Queen's Rocks. Earlier today, I sent an email to some councillors, and I'm not sure whether or not they received it, because the last email that I sent went to the city's, through the city's security, blocked me, took a week before councillors got it. So obviously some of you might have got it and some of you might not have. The crux of that email, for those who may not have received it in time, was as follows. I know a lot of tonight's focus on the Caravan Park is on the proponent of the lease, but fundamentally for me, this is about the loss of public land and the precedent that is being set for other coastal communities now and into the future. The attached document gives a clear picture of what is expected from a state government policy position, and also from a community that has lived experience of the loss of coastal erosion and sea level rise can cause. I have lived in Quinns for 40 years, and I have seen the tremendous loss of coastal foreshore and the impact it's had on community, whose social focal point was the beach and its adjacent amenities. Our main beach used to be Fred Stubbs, but due to ongoing localised erosion, we lost 2/3 of the parkland, a boat ramp, picnic huts, car parking space, the boat, and again the boat ramp. The toilets had to be moved to their current position, and the surf club, which was also a community hub, moved to lot 211. This had a devastating effect on the community coherence and the 2 local businesses adjacent to Fred Stubbs Park. Slowly, the community has adjusted, the businesses have rejuvenated with a change of direction, and the surf club has grown to the point and it is now in need of much more needed space for its members and its equipment. Locals want to support the surf club, but in previous years have been turned away from nippers due to them reaching capacity. Please don't let this happen again. We would love to support them socially, but the idea of being crammed into a tiny licensed area puts many off. Unbelievably, some current and previous councillors objected to the club extending their social area on the basis of alcohol consumption, but will happily now direct community to use a licensed lawn area of the glamping site. Please understand that while sometimes my stance comes across aggressive, my anger, in brackets, passion, is directed at the way this has been handled, the objections from myself and the community over a number of years completely ignored, and the lack of understanding or empathy for a community that is probably the most restricted in the whole of the city of Wanneroo for the use of public space. Old Quinns has 4 parks, 3 of which you can either not walk your dog in at all or are restricted to outside school and sporting group hire times. The remaining unrestricted park is a small park on the far north-eastern boundary of Old Quinns, the furthest boundary away from Lot 211.
Ms Singali, you've had 3 minutes and 20 seconds. I will give you another 30 seconds to finish your public question time. Thank you.
Whilst I'll acknowledge that there's been some economic benefit, it is not dependent on that particular location. And if this was the real intent for administration, why then has no other location, whether owned by the city or not, been explored? No other businesses other than those on Lot 211 who are already drawing an income for the city are in a walkable catchment, meaning the economic benefit is reliant on cars or public transport. This being the case, the glamping location would have the same or similar benefit wherever it was located. And then I've referred councillors to the State Coastal Planning Policy Guidelines November 2020, and it talks about previous planning decisions made with reserves for coastal foreshore and telling you that it needs to be reviewed because those are redundant, they need to be updated. The coastal foreshore that was put aside prior to SPP 2.6 is now no longer adequate. You need to prepare for the future communities. When sea level rise hits this area, the first part to go will be the grassland in front of the surf club. We'll have nothing at all.
You have had 4 minutes and 38 seconds. Thank you. Ms Kelly Wheatcroft, if you'd like to come down and speak to CSO 6 and give us the suburb you live in. Thank you, Ms Wheatcroft.
Kelly Wheatcroft, Queen's Rocks. I'd like to remind the councillors that while there's been much talk about the surf club, unlike many of our football and T-ball clubs in the area, the Queen's Rocks, or the Queen's Mandari Surf Lifesaving Clubs, provides a service for the community. This morning, there was people on patrol. This morning, the disabled wheelchair was out on the beach providing that facility for people of the public this morning. So we have inclusion, everything that we've mentioned so far. I would like to ask the councillors again to reconsider this decision. I was reading the traffic impact assessment this morning and I was also reading the noise modelling study. The noise modelling study does not appear to allow for the fact that I'm assuming the glamping tents will be air conditioned. If they're not, that was fair, but I would assume that at least some of those glamping tents will be tended to be air conditioned. None of the air conditioning in those glamping tents has been taken into account in any of the noise modelling, and the noise modelling is very close to the limits for those closest to that area. The traffic impacts assessment for that area, all undertaken by the proponent, states that Queen's Beach South Regional is considered a coastal node under their LPP 4.21 because of the size and the number of people that it attracts to the region. Yet, Queen's Mandari Surf Lifesaving Club has been told that it's a district node as a reason for why it shouldn't and wouldn't be expanded when you look at the Alkimos and Yanship Surf Lifesaving Clubs in comparison. In addition, that traffic impacts assessment has considered that there would be 50 parking bays required by holiday accommodation, use, 35 car bays required by cafe use, 35 car bays required by lounge bar use, and another 50 car bays on special events, which brings us up to 170. In that traffic impact assessment, it is said that there's only 80 car bays required, on the assumption that the cafe and the lounge bar would not be open at the same time, and therefore the patrons of one wouldn't happen at the same time. However, when you look at the proponents' opening times, the cafe is proposed to be open from 7 a.m. to 2:30 p.m, and the lounge bar is open from 5 p.m. on weekdays, but from 10 a.m. till 12 a.m. on the weekends. So from 10 a.m. till 2:30 or later in the afternoon on a Saturday and a Sunday, you'll have cafe and lounge bar patrons. Therefore, by my numbers, we've got 120 car bays required and only 80 provided in the current planning. So I would like to think that we're not going to be overflowing into existing parking, which is already at its limit. So I would beg the councillors to reconsider this decision based on the fact the noise modelling doesn't seem to be complete, the traffic impact assessment surely has holes in it. This, as we've stated before, I'm not opposed to development, I'm not opposed to this development, I'm opposed to this development in this location. It's a community of a site. During a weekday, we've got disabled access on beach with wheelchairs, we've got the surf club providing a service to the community. Can the council please repay the community with their desire for a green space? And I'll refer you again to the survey that was paid for by the City of Wanneroo. Question 20 asks directly, do you want something else at this location? 64% of the people that voted for you responded that they want something other than the glamping location at this site. The question that refers, we claim 70% support, asks you how you feel about this development. Now, if you don't know anything about this development and you're not a local to Quinns, I'm not quite sure how you're going to respond to how you feel, but that is not a yes or no answer to do you support it. So, councillors, please
Ms Wheatcroft, you've had
reconsider
3
your
minutes
decision.
and 45 seconds. Would Ms Jennings like to respond to the question within that item then? Thank you. About parking and management of parking. Oh, is that a Mr Dixon? Thank you, Mr Dixon.
And through you, Mayor, so if this proposal is supported, the next stage would be for the West Australian Planning Commission to undertake an assessment of the development application. That will consider, as part of that application, all of the accompanying documents, the technical reports that have been provided by the proponent in support of that application.
May I respond to that?
No, you've had 3 minutes and 52 seconds, so your question time is over now.
In the proponent's own documents, you're not complying with the City of Wanneroo's parking laws and
Thank you. Please sit down. Are there any other questions this evening from the gallery? Anyone want to ask any further questions? If there are no further questions, we'll move on with the agenda. Item 4, confirmation of minutes, OC01 1223, minutes of the ordinary council meeting held on the 21st of November 2023, that the minutes of the ordinary council meeting be confirmed. Do I have a mover on this item? Deputy Mayor Rowe, and seconder Councillor Huntley. Can we just vote on this item? Thank you. And Councillor Smith is for, so that's passed unanimously. Do we have any questions from council members relating to the items tonight? Okay, we move on to item 7, petitions. There's no new petitions, and the update on the petition there of Kingsbridge Park Butler is in the agenda. Declarations of interest by council members, including the nature and extent of which the interests are to be made at the commencement of the item to which the interest relates. Declarations of interest forms are to be completed and handled to the Chief Executive Officer. We go to item 8, reports, planning and sustainability. Who would like to move PSO 1/12/23, Western Australian Planning Commission's proposal for an improvement plan for Yanchep City Centre and surrounding areas? Do I have a mover?
Excuse me, Madam Mayor.
Yes.
Could we possibly move forward the item that most of the public are here for, SC06 1223, please? Could we move it to the beginning of the agenda?
Do I have a seconder to bring that item forward? Councillor Coetzee. Okay, we will cast our vote. Thank you. So we've got the online one. 15. Okay, we have 3 against and 12 for, so we move that item. CS, where are we? CS06 1223, we move forward now and we will do. Councillor Parker, Councillor Rowe and Councillor Wright voted against. Thank you. Okay, CS06 1223, proposed lease agreement for lease and ground lease and development application for former Queen's Rocks Caravan site, part lot 211, Queen's Road, Mindarie. I have a mover for that, which is Councillor Parker, a seconder, which is Councillor Herridge. Councillor Parker, would you like to speak to this item?
Thank you, Mayor. Firstly, I would like to thank the City's administration for the many hours of work setting up this lease. Thank you for always answering the myriad of questions I have had and the patience you have taken with me when I called to confirm the original answers. I do not take my decision this evening lightly, and I needed to be able to sit here this evening and state to Council and residents that I am confident and that I trust I have the correct information before me this evening to make my decision on awarding the ground lease which is before Council tonight. As a councillor, I have no doubt to the due diligence that has taken and been done by administration. Not because I blindly trust administration, but because I have been supplied with verified and substantiated information, scrutinised it, understood it, and when necessary, questioned it. This is my responsibility, as it is every councillor's responsibility here this evening. Lot 211 belongs to every single rate-paying resident who lives in the city of Wanneroo. As a councillor, I and all councillors have a fiduciary responsibility to ensure ratepayers' money and property is well managed and used equally across the city to ensure intergenerational equity and equality to every single rate-paying resident. According to my and your code of conduct, we are not to show or have any bias towards any group or any individual. The administration of the city cannot manufacture, hide, or fabricate facts to suit themselves or direct council to vote in one way or the other by misrepresenting information given to the councillors. I would also like to thank the proponent for his willingness to work with administration and council and the Surf Club and recognise that every effort has been made by the proponents to accommodate all of the local community's wants, needs, aspirations and fears. I will ensure, along with my fellow councillors, that the city's administration continue to work with the Queen's Mindarie Surf Club to assist with their development and future needs. The City of Wanneroo is the largest and fastest growing local government in WA. With this tag comes huge responsibility. As councillors, we need to ensure we support all efforts made by our administration in encouraging, seeking out and supporting business development from all sectors to ensure future prosperity to the city's growing population and create a city in which residents can prosper, work and live. This said, I have no hesitation in supporting the recommendation this evening, noting that the recommendation, if signed tonight, as stated in item 4 of the recommendation, will still be subject to further scrutiny by the West Australian Planning Commission, further giving residents and councillors the confidence that the development will be of the highest standard. Thank you, Mayor and fellow councillors.
Thank you, Councillor Parker. Councillor Herridge, would you like to speak to this item?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I'm glad to have this item in front of us for the last time. In July 2022, Council agreed to proceed with the proponent and the preferred use of the land. The result of an expression of interest, a proposal of a glamping-style tourism facility for the site. And most recently, this August, Council voted to proceed to lease negotiations, and the result draft lease is now before us with the development application. Our administration team have worked with the proponent to include everything Council has asked for and more within this lease. To name a few, there's two bank guarantees, open space accessible by the public, eventing promises, public access toilets, outside access to a kiosk, easy beach access, and embarrassingly, how often the lawns are mowed and to be kept. It's the likes of a lease agreement that we've never seen before. The terms of the ground lease provides for little to no risk at all for us, which is the city, during and after construction. My fellow councillors, it is now over to us to follow this through. We have an obligation to the proponent from our own EOI process, to our staff who have diligently followed process and procedure on Council's continual past years of unanimous direction. Our community, as much as some may not agree with us right now, or me in particular, will come to realise how much they have been accommodated for from the consultation in the final design. It's not the time to make light of your decision in upholding the city's reputation, integrity, and to remain a respected leader in the industry. We are on show tonight and everybody is watching. A negative decision in approving a negotiated lease after securing the preferred proponent over 12 months prior would impact future business opportunities and show the tourism industry that we aren't interested in showcasing our amazing coastline and opportunities for highly sought after accommodation and dining. I'm supporting this lease and the proponent's application for forwarding to the WAPC, and I hope everyone will also be doing in the same. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Herridge. Do I have any speakers against?
Mayor, point of order.
Yes, Deputy Mayor Rowe.
I did not wish to raise a point of order throughout the mover and the seconder's remarks, but under 4.15 and 4.17, preservation of order in the chamber, just in relation to the use of profanity that was from the chamber, that wouldn't be allowed in state or federal parliament, and I don't believe it would be acceptable in this place either. There is a need to respect and not intimidate elected members while they're making their remarks, and while there may be disagreement, I don't think it's acceptable for members to be shouted at or to be heckled from the gallery.
Yes, I agree, and I would ask the people in the gallery to be silent as Council discuss this item. Thank you. Do I have a speaker against? Councillor Nguyen?
Mayor, I just have a few questions before I move an amendment to the recommendation. I apologise I didn't get a chance to ask these questions last week.
Okay, go ahead, Councillor Nguyen.
And if at any stage, if there are any other councillors that may want to ask the questions, I'm happy just to hold off until then. Thank you, Mayor. I've got some concerns about just the due diligence that's been carried out, and I just have a few questions regarding the due diligence that was actually carried out by the city. Did the city engage any external organisation to carry out the due diligence on the proponents?
Ms Jennings?
Thank you, Mayor. We did have the external searches done by an external company, plus we also had Clayton Oots also check the due diligence to see if it was adequate as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms Jennings. Do you have another question, Councillor Nguyen?
Yes, and the external searches, I understand, were ASIC searches and bankruptcy searches. Those are searches that are readily available by the member public. My question on due diligence is, does the city know whether the proponent had been charged, convicted, or is part of any legal proceedings, criminal or civil, in the past or currently?
Ms Jennings, was that a confidential attachment that's included in the report?
Thank you, Mayor. There is one confidential attachment. Actually, there's two confidential attachments, so we could go behind closed doors if the Mayor wanted to.
Maybe I'll just hold off for that
You
for now.
want to just, okay. Do you have another question?
So maybe related to that, has the city obtained police clearance certificates from the directors for any overseas period that the directors have lived overseas?
Ms Jennings?
Thank you, Mayor. The confidential attachment relates to some of that.
Okay. I'll move on in terms of the directors. Questions in relation to the amount the proponent is looking at investing in terms of $8 million has, and I asked this question earlier, but I don't know, I did get a chance to get a response. Has the city verify whether the proposal is anywhere close to $8 million that's been indicated that it will be invested on this development?
Ms Jennings?
Thank you, Mayor. The check by some of our project managers says it's at least that amount.
Thank
Okay.
you, Ms Jennings. Councillor Nguyen?
Thank you. The legal costs incurred in the preparation of this lease is somewhere between $17,000 to $27,000. Is that reasonable? It seems high to me.
Ms Jennings?
And sorry, does that just preparation of legal of lease, or does that include other work as well?
Yes.
Thank you, Mayor. The reason why that cost is a bit higher than a normal lease is obviously there's a lot of bespoke clauses that will had to get drafted in regards to public access and a lot of the other things that needed to be included. That those costs were just in relation to the lease.
Thank you. Any other questions, Councillor Nguyen?
There is also an alcohol licence. Is that a condition of the lease? That is, the proponent must obtain an alcohol licence for them to proceed with this, or if they cannot obtain an alcohol licence, would they still proceed with it?
Mr Dunn?
Thank you, Mayor. That's a major part of their business for them to obtain a liquor licence, and it is a clause in the lease. So that's something that they'll have to meet to operate as a business.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr Dunn. Councillor Nguyen?
The bank guarantee, in the event that the company is wound up, do we have security over that amount, as in priority over that claim?
Mr Dunn?
Yes, we do, and we also have personal guarantees for Russell Percival and Luke Percival.
And
Ms
through
Jennings?
Mayor, you'll find this on page 16, that particular information.
Councillor Nguyen, do you have another question?
Yes. There's a reference to deeming clause where there's any change to the ownership, and that's pegged at 50%. That's quite high in leases that I've seen. It's usually looked at about 20%.
Ms Jennings?
Sorry, if I can assist,
Sorry,
that's on page
Mayor.
17.
Yes, I was just about to say that's on page 16 and 17. We only have leaseholders that are up to 50% at the moment. Plus, you may see that we've added a clause to the recommendation noting that should any assignment or sublease be proposed, that the city administration's delegation not be used and that would come back to council.
Thank you, Ms Jennings. Councillor Nguyen, do you have another question?
Could I just clarify that at the moment, based on the 50% share units, any transfer that is less than 50% does not require the city's consent? Is that right?
Ms Jennings?
Through you, Mayor. Can I just clarify, are you referring to any change in the trust or in the
Both.
ecotourism? Both. In terms of the trust, like the director said, their members, shareholders in that trust, the highest percentage holding is 34.93%. So there's not a major concern with the 50%. In terms of Ecotourism Pty Ltd, the two shareholders of that are Russell Percival and Luke Percival, as mentioned on page 19. If there was any change proposed to those two 50% stakes, that would have to come through to administration as part of the lease for approval.
Sorry,
Thank you,
can
Mr Dunn. Councillor Nguyen, do you have another question?
So can you clarify, so if there is a change that is cumulatively over the period of 12 months, that is less than 50%, then there is no need for council to approve that?
Mr Dunn?
There's a clause in the lease as well that deals with cumulative changes, so we can monitor that and see if it is a slow change over time and add that up as if it was a 50% in one go.
Yeah, okay. So
Thank you, Mr Dunn. Do you have another question, Councillor Nguyen?
I do. Just in relation to market rent review, does that include, when it comes to market rent review, does that include just the land or the land and the building after 5 years?
Mr Dunn?
Thank you, Mayor. That will include just the land value, so on a ground lease basis, similar to the attachment in the report, a valuation will be done by a third-party valuer to determine what the market rent is at that stage. It happens every 5 years in the lease.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr Dunn. Councillor Nguyen, do you have another question?
Yes. There's also the event that it's proposed that the proponent will organise, I think, 9 events per year. Is there a minimum amount set in terms of costs that they would incur to organise those events? So anything, for example...
Mr Dunn, if you could answer that question, please. Thank you.
There's no minimum in terms of cost, but the city will be engaged with in terms of what those events will be, so we'll be aware of what they are, and we will try and influence what those events would be. So it wouldn't just be 9 yoga sessions. There would be larger events that would cater to what the community would like.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Dunn. Do you have another question, Councillor Nguyen?
No, thank you so much for your time for that. I'd like to move in an amendment to the recommendation, Mayor.
No one has seen the amendment.
Yes.
No one, and admin hasn't had time to do anything about it.
Yes.
So what is the amendment you wish to bring, Councillor?
If I...
Do you have a seconder for the amendment?
I do.
Who is the seconder?
That's Councillor Coetzee.
Thank you.
And I do apologise for not giving a heads up, as these amendments weren't readily available until I haven't had the chance to look at the lease itself. And these are just 7 amendments, which I consider minor, that would alleviate the concerns of the residents. And as
Councillor Nguyen, can we please see the amendments so that we can look at them, please, now?
Well,
so
I'd like to...
councillors to look at them.
I'd like to say these amendments, please.
I'm sorry, we want to read them in hard copy. So could you please give them to Ms Smart so that she can get a copy to us, and I'll adjourn the meeting until we can read them. Thank you. Can I have a mover to adjourn the meeting? Yes, Deputy Mayor Rowe, seconder Councillor Wright.
Mayor,
can we vote to adjourn the meeting,
in terms of for a period length of time, I was proposing around 10 minutes. Would that be sufficient for the administration? Can I seek clarification from the administration how long may be required to be able to get the hard copy visible to elected members for the purpose of good governance?
Just one other question. We have a council member online and they do not have a copy of the amendment. How will we get a copy of the amendment to them? You will email it. So can that be done in 10 minutes? Okay, so it's 10 minutes. Thank Thank you. So we will vote to adjourn the meeting now. Okay, so 14 support adjourning the meeting and 1 against, which is Councillor Herridge. Thank you. We will adjourn the meeting until 26 minutes past 7. Thank you. Thank you. We reconvene the meeting at 7:29. Councillor Nguyen, will you please read what you say is your amendments, please?
Thank you, Mayor. These amendments I consider are essential to ensure that the public community concerns are dealt with and to balance the needs of both the proponent's interest in making a profit-running business.
Councillor Nguyen, just read the amendments, please.
Sure. The first amendment is to add a 5% percentage rent clause. So just in case anyone who doesn't understand what percentage rent is that it would apply only if the proponent's turnover...
Councillor Nguyen, please read the amendments and not speak to the amendments. Just read what they are.
Problem.
Thank you.
Okay. The lease and agreement to lease be amended to include the following provisions. 1. Okay. There be a percentage rent of 5% with a threshold turnover of $250,000. Second, the market rent review include both land and any improvement on the land. Which shall be reviewed every 5 years. The community events minimum spend per year is $100,000. To be spent by the proponent each year. The change in shareholding be reduced from 50% to 20%. The tenant pays for the landlord's legal costs, as this is not a retail commercial lease. Which is estimated to be between $17,500 to $27,500. Sorry, there's just 2 more.
So that makes 7 amendments, is that correct? Because we're up to 5 at the moment.
Yes, thank you very much. The rent be increased from $50,000 to $150,000 a year. And lastly, the proponent be required within 2 years install a jumping pillow. That's for the youth.
Thank you, Councillor Nguyen. I rule this not as an amendment but as an alternative, and so therefore we will vote on the substantive as we move forward. So these alternative suggestions will only come to the fore after we have spoken to the original substantive. Do I have any speakers against this item? Councillor Berry.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Firstly, I want to thank administration for answering some of the many questions over the last week. I'll acknowledge the emails from some of my colleagues in the chamber here tonight that they advised they were happy with the report as presented last week. However, without me asking those questions, we would not have the addition of clause 6 on page 33, and I thank admin for adding this to their recommendation. The income from this proposal is 50k for the lease and 30 for the rates. Putting that in perspective, it equates to around 30 household rates. If we look at the petition signed by 1,500 or just over, and say on average 2 adults was in each house, that would be over 750 households that objected to this development. Over 1,500 people signed a petition asking for consideration of this land being used as public open space. They still feel ignored and let down by us as elected to represent their views. They feel we've not listened. And it is interesting to see on the agenda that we're yet to get to tonight that there's a petition from only 64 residents requesting an enclosed park in Butler, and admin are currently undertaking feasibility studies. There have been other petitions with far less numbers than over 1,500 that have been heard, and I'm unsure why the Wanneroo community asking for public open space cannot be heard. Community access was a concern and remains a concern, with the liquor licence dictating the permitted patrons allowed on site at any one time. If all 40 tents are occupied, a full complement of staff is on site, and there is a smallest function of 100 people, the community will be locked out. This restriction will also apply to the proposed community events. The place can only take 240 patrons. The business cannot get a good return on investment from 40 glamping tents alone, and it needs its functions to be viable. We all understand that. The community will consistently therefore be disadvantaged due to the licensing requirements and restrictions, not necessarily the intent of the proponent. This business can't survive on just community attendance, so of course the proponent's going to try to be booked out to maximise the returns. There are those in this chamber tonight that said their main consideration would be the community access and impact to the community. So I hope they all stay true to their consideration tonight, as we are elected to be the voice for the community. I have been advised some concerns I raised as posed to me by community members was not legitimate concerns, and I would argue any concern is a legitimate concern until it has been addressed. We have all seen or had things shared from social media from third-party companies making claims about events, beach parties, and how the proposed site will be run by an offshore company. The question remains who's actually going to run the dunes if approved. And we all understand contractors for cleaning, marketing may be engaged, but Intana Corp claimed they would be engaged to run this site via their website like they already do for some of the proponents' other businesses. That website may have disappeared last week faster than lightning, but I wonder, will it appear as fast depending on the vote tonight? Are we sure we know who we're doing business with? I'm not so sure. I asked for a fair amount of due diligence, appreciating admin had confirmed they had included other states and not just WA. However, the reference to an offshore company that made public claims remains unanswered. I've also heard in this chamber how this site is not likely to be noisy. Well, I'm yet to go to an outside wedding, music event or similar that is silent, so residents are concerned, not necessarily by the report admin has produced regarding noise, but claims made on social media by third-party entities. The resolution in August had several parts to it: the sense of place statement, protection of conservation area, working with the Queensland Surf Lifesaving Club and additional parking. None of these have been addressed, with the standard comment throughout the report tonight saying this aspect of the resolution is not currently at a stage requiring a further decision of council. However, all these parts can impact each other. The Queensland Surf Lifesaving Club will be impacted by this development if approved. It will landlock this club. The Alkimos Surf Lifesaving Club is several years away from being developed, and growing demand to join Quins will remain. They are a club of choice, attracting membership from other suburbs, not just locally to the club. The club has been asking for additional space since 2016, but this has been disputed. We have seen emails and letters from the club and Surf Lifesaving WA telling us this. This club or any other life-saving club cannot be compared...
Councillor Berry, you have had 5 minutes. Do I have a mover and seconder for you to speak longer? Moved, Councillor Coetzee. Seconded, Councillor Huntley.
Thank you.
How much longer do you need, Councillor Berry?
Maybe 3 minutes?
3 minutes.
This club cannot be compared to the local footy club as they are a...
We need to put it to the vote first, Councillor Berry. Councillors, could you please vote on the extra time for Councillor Berry to speak, please? We have 13 for and 7 against, which was Councillor Herridge and Councillor Parker. Councillor Berry, you have 3 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This club cannot be compared to your local footy club as they are a valuable emergency service the city has described as vital part of the local community and a central provider of beach and coastal safety. All emergency services should be accommodated to grow and expand as our population grows and expand, so an appropriate emergency response can be provided. I wonder if consideration has been given to the impact any further development will put on the club in terms of additional beach safety requirements. Surely allowing the emergency service to expand would be better benefit to our community and visitors. Queen's Rock Environmental Group have also voiced their concerns about this land being tied up and denied to the community until 2045. I can't believe we're really proposing to upset our community groups tonight that work hard locally in our Wanneroo community. The proposal for glamping is attractive to the city as a third party will pay to develop the land, but at what cost to the Wanneroo community who pay their rates, put their trust in us and want us to listen and represent them? Are we really going to turn a blind eye to the working group feedback and surveys that all came out in support of open space for all and not just a select few? Parking is also a major concern, and the weekend just gone saw the overflow car park full again. We as a city recently asked our residents about recreational fishing and advised the community via social media. We asked, you said, we listened. Can we as a council please unite behind the majority of those who have asked us to provide them with beachfront public open space for all? Again, the site is restricted by the liquor licence that will see community unable to access the site if the business is going to be viable. And this is not what the Wanneroo community were led to believe would be the case. This last piece of coastal land in Quinn should be for all residents. I would ask all my fellow councillors to vote against this proposal and enable this council to leave a legacy of support its residents to have beachside public open space for the whole district for Wanneroo and visitors to enjoy when they visit the beach from other suburbs. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Berry. Do I have any speakers for this item? You've had a lot of questions so far. What is your question, Councillor Nguyen?
And I do appreciate your patience, Mayor. Just my question regarding the $8 million that's intended to be invested. Is that a condition of the lease that there's a minimum spend on the development?
Mr. Dunn.
Thank you, Mayor. The proponent has to develop what is attached to the lease documents, which will be the development application. So they will, in order to be able to activate the ground lease after the AFL period, they would need to have developed what was in the development application, meaning the $8 million.
Thank you, Mr. Dunn. Do you have another question, Councillor Nguyen?
Just arising from that. If they were to spend, let's say, $2 million because they got a good deal to build that, does that mean that they don't have to spend the other $6 million on this site?
Ms. Jennings.
Thank you, Mayor. As Mr Dunn said, they have to build what was in the development application, which firstly has to be approved by West Australian Planning Commission. And as Mr Singh's team has already assessed, there will be at least $8 million required to spend on to be able to create what you see in the designs.
Thank you, Ms Jennings. Do you have another question, Councillor Nguyen?
Yes, so the designs, all we have are just the artist's impressions. They're not the specs. It hasn't specified the specs on terms of how it's built. So how did you assess the evaluation?
Mr Singh, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. There are attachments there which show the concept plan and the areas which the proponent is proposing to construct. Based on those areas, we have estimated what the likely cost could be, and then that is likely to be upwards of $8 million.
Thank you, Mr Singh. Any other question, Mr Nguyen?
Could I ask the city, I don't know whether we had the power to ask him to provide, I guess, the total cost of construction at the end of it? Would that be possible?
I think that's probably unreasonable because he hasn't even got the lease to put it out to tender to do it, and he's not going to put it out to tender or for quotes for that to happen. I think that's quite an unreasonable request. Thank you, Mr Nguyen. But would Mr Dixon confirm that?
At this stage, no application has been lodged. We've got a draft application which provides sufficient information for the Commission to determine, but that level of granular detail isn't provided with the application at this stage.
Thank you, Mr Dixon. Okay, do I have any speakers speakers for this item? If I have no speakers for this item, we will go to the vote. Thank you. Yes, Councillor Coetzee?
I'd like to speak against it.
Yes, but there's no one to speak for it, so there's no more to and fro, so we're going straight to the vote now. Okay, thank you. That is how this meeting is run and how we do it. There is no speakers for the motion, and if there are no speakers for the motion, we don't carry the argument any further. You're going to speak for the motion, are you, Mr Councillor Nguyen? Thank you, Councillor.
In speaking for this motion, I have balanced, I guess, the needs of the community in wanting a public open space and the desire to develop this area by the proponent. And the proponent has put forward a proposal that will develop this land and the lease. While I'm not in favour of the lease, including the areas of concern that I raised, that included that the lease was too low, 50,000, and the proposed alternative was to allow council to recover additional rent as a percentage rent in the event.
Councillor Nguyen, we are not talking about your alternative.
I'm not.
Well, you're talking about the change of a 5% rent clause, which was part of the alternative that I ruled. That is not to be discussed at this time.
So I'm talking about while I'm in favour of the lease, what I'm saying is these are also the concerns. So I'm just balancing both the interests of the proponent to ensure that it's a viable project, but also to maximise council return on this land. And to maximise council return on the land, one option could be is to allow council to recover a percentage of the turnover, whatever that may be.
That is still speaking to the alternative, because that's one of the 7 items on the alternative that I ruled as an alternative. So you're just speaking for this as it is and not speaking to your alternative.
I'm not speaking at the alternative. I'm talking about the concerns I have. The other concerns I have relates to the lease allows the proponent to change ownership up to 50%. Now, it's been suggested that...
Councillor Nguyen, You have put that as one of the items in your alternative. Please do not speak to the items in your alternative. You're either speaking for or you're speaking against. You need to be speaking for this item, Councillor
Point
Nguyen.
of order, Madam Mayor. At this stage, there is no alternative. I have not put forward an alternative.
You have put forward an alternative because
No, I haven't.
I ruled it as an alternative, and your alternative was moved and seconded by Councillor Coetzee. I have moved it as an alternative and ruled it as an alternative. We are speaking to the substantive now and not to the alternative, Councillor Nguyen. Thank you. Thank you.
So, Madam Mayor, I hope I haven't lost much time with that discussion. The value of the site has been significantly reduced because of the current proposed rent of $50,000. Now, to increase the value of the site, we need to consider the...
Councillor Nguyen, that is the alternative again.
It's
you
not.
have done this 4 times, I think, in the meeting. So therefore, I think
let
we'll
me
just have
I won't
to
talk
leave.
about the lease, okay? I won't talk about the lease.
Thank you, Councillor Nguyen.
This is the last chance for us to vote. The boat will sail for 21 years if we don't vote against it tonight.
You are just speaking against it. You are just speaking against it when you said you were fine. You said if you vote it, the boat has sailed. That tells me that you're speaking
that's
against
just
it.
giving my colleagues an understanding of the urgency of the need to vote on this motion and
To
how
vote
important
for this motion or on this motion?
to vote on this motion, to vote on this motion, on this recommendation. And we hear the benefit of having a community development as an open space, but also the benefit of the development by the proponent, which I think has some merits, but which I don't share.
You're obviously speaking against it if you're saying this has some merits that you don't
I'm
share.
weighing it. I'm weighing the two.
You're either speaking for it or you're speaking against it.
Point of order, Madam Mayor.
Yes, Councillor Wright.
Under 7.1, I would like to move that the motion now be put.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder for that? Yes, Councillor Herridge. We will go to the vote to have the motion now put. It's 14. Missing one. We're waiting for one. We're waiting. Councillor Miles? You've got to vote.
Sorry, it's just substantive.
Oh, no, we're voting on whether to take the procedural motion. Yeah, sorry. We'll take that as the procedural motion, and I've got 9 for the procedural motion to go straight to the vote and 6 against. Those against going to the procedural motion is Councillor Figg, Councillor Bedworth, Councillor Huntley, Councillor Nguyen, Councillor Coetzee and Councillor Berry. The procedural motion has been won and we will go to the vote now.
Just point of order, Mayor. I was in the middle of speaking, and so a point of order that's an interruption during my speech, and that moving of the motion can be done after that.
Your speaking to the item was interrupted because you weren't speaking for the item, you were speaking against the item. You had asked 4 times you had spoken against the item in your statement, and I had ruled that this was time that you had had enough. And then Councillor Wright moved the procedural motion, and it is a procedural motion, even though those in the box didn't put the procedural motion up. The procedural motion has been won. Councillor Wright, did you want to say something?
Thank you, Mayor. Just according to our standing orders and just casting council members that have been here over the last 2 years, move your brain back to November 2022. Points of order have precedence over anything else, and the presiding person has to address that even if it's during a member's speech. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Wright. And we have done the procedural motion and we have voted on it. And so, therefore, Councillor Parker, would you like your right of reply now before we go to vote on the substantive? Thank you.
No, thank you, Madam Mayor. Nothing further to say.
Thank you. So now we will vote on the substantive. Councillors, we're getting ready, when they've done it in the box, to cast our vote. And it has been passed. We have 8 in support and 7 against. The councillors against were Councillor Figg, Councillor Bedworth, Councillor Huntley, Councillor Newen, Councillor Coetzee and Councillor Smith and Councillor Berry. So I declare that CSO 5 main substantive has been passed. Thank you. We will just take a minute while those who are in the gallery want to leave can leave. Thank you. Thank you, councillors. We go back to item 8, reports, planning and sustainability, strategic land use and planning and environment, PSO 1/12/23. The Western Australian Planning Commission's proposal for an improvement plan for Yanchep City Centre and surrounding areas. Do I have a mover and seconder for this item? Councillor Herridge, and seconded Deputy Mayor Rowe. Councillor Herridge, do you want to speak to this item?
No, thank you, Mayor.
Deputy Mayor Rowe, do you want to speak to this item?
Only briefly, Mayor, to say that I considered the report carefully and spoke with Mr Dixon, and while the city can request a minimum standard of consultation occur as part of this process, it can't be mandated. So I understand the administration's comments that they've made around ensuring that the stakeholders in this area are included about the planning into the future. So I thank the administration for the report.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Rowe. Do I have a speaker against this item? Councillor Miles.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I don't support the recommendation, especially item 1, and I definitely would vote against the recommendation 1, but I'm happy with 2, 3 and 4. So it would be good if we could actually split the recommendations for a vote, if possible, for the CEO to think about that. The reason I don't believe this area, the Yanchep area of the city centre and the surrounding area of that, is obviously going to be the next major town centre going forward. And I don't think, and with all due respect to our own administrative staff, I don't think that we can have the speed to be able to make such decisions rapidly involving other departments in a very progressive and informative place. Whilst we will be involved in any decision and maybe we would be asked for some support, I'm familiar with the land owner and owners, and they have a specific way of wanting to move the development forward. It is going to be something totally different to what anybody else has seen, to my understanding. It has changed several times over the last 10 years that I know of, and that's through obviously continuing to talk to new innovative ideas from a land perspective and a planning perspective. That's not to say, as I said before, that our own agency can't be involved. I just think it would be better from a planning perspective if it was under the control of the state planning, and then if it doesn't go right, it will be their responsibility to make any changes and any fixes that needs to happen. But with that, Mayor, is it possible that we could actually split that to, say, 2 votes, that we can vote on the first one and then 2, 3 and 4 as the second block?
Okay, do you have a seconder for that? Councillor Wright. We will now vote to decide whether to split it. Is it the presiding member? So we can divide the recommendations by vote according to 5.3 motions item 2. And so we have a mover, Councillor Miles, we have a seconder, Councillor Councillor Wright, and the request is that we vote on item 1 separately to items 2, 3 and 4. Councillors, could you cast... Wait. Sorry, Mr Dixon?
Mayor, just for clarification, number 4 approves the formal response to the chairman, which is based on not supporting the improvement plan, and that's the letter that has been drafted to send to the chairman as the council's response. So if there is going to be an alternate recommendation or a splitting, then we need to remove 1 and 4 as the basis, and we then need to provide a separate response which captures 2 and 3.
Okay, so what we are voting for is to divide the recommendation up into voting on 1 and 4 as separate to 2 and 3. And so, councillors, could you please cast your vote? Is this to this one?
Still missing a few.
Councillor Newens. He's left the meeting.
Mayor, it just might be worth noting that Councillor Newen is absent from the room at this stage, so the number of votes will be 1 less than what was previously had for the previous item.
Yes, I've just noticed that he's gone. Okay, so, sorry? Okay. We have 13 in support of the procedural motion and 1 against, which was Councillor Herridge. So I think we'll vote on items 2 and 3 first, and then we'll go to items 1 and 4 on the recommendation. Do I have a speaker against item 2 and 3? Or first of all, do I have a mover for item 2 and 3? But we need a mover.
No, you've already got a mover and a seconder for the motion as such. You've just
made a
decision to split it, so you've got that covered.
Okay, so do I have a speaker against item 2 and 3? If there are no speakers against item 2 and 3, please, councillors, cast your vote. And that's passed unanimously with 14 councillors. We now go to items 1 and 4. Do I have a speaker against the item? Councillor Wright.
Sorry, Mayor, is it against the amendment or against the item?
Against the item, which does not support. We're speaking to item 1 and item 4 in the report, so that are you in support of what is written there, or are you not in support of what is written in item 1? Are you against it?
Hang on, my phone's... Sorry. Supporting the establishment of an improvement plan.
That's right.
Yes,
yep.
I am.
And that is against the recommendation.
Okay. So against the recommendation.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mayor. Sorry. Just in regards to some of Councillor Miles' points, I think are quite valid, and I think with the interagency communications, I just do think that it will save us a lot in going through the process and statutory stuff that we have to do at the city, and letting the WAPC get involved in that and be able to implement those decisions quicker. And certainly, if there are more options out there that the WAPC needs to explore, then at least they have the flexibility to do that, rather than for us and our resources that we have may not be able to do that as quickly. So I'm in favour of the improvement plan to ensure that the WAPC can implement those as quickly as possible and communicate with those other state agencies to get the planning process done more quickly. Thank you, Mayor.
In support of the recommendation. Yes, Councillor Parker.
So just going back to something that has been worrying us for a long time is, for example, the width of the verge or the width of the distance from the garage to the road, etc. If we let this go, and the state government, as we know at the moment, is rightfully so getting rid of all the red tape, etc., etc., that takes away our ability to say we wanted wider verges because we're having a problem with people parking their utes or etc. That takes away everything from us. So by saying, yes, go ahead, I understand that it's going to speed up everything, and I agree with that. But I don't know that as a community of City of Wanneroo, with all of the changes and the building and the development going ahead, if we completely want to say, there it is, we don't want anything more to do with you. So that's the only reason and the question that I have. Am I right in questioning that? If we do, are we giving everything back and saying we're going to walk away from this and community, that's it, done?
Mr Dixon?
It's a hard question to answer because at this point in time, it's an improvement plan to cover the area. What may happen once the improvement plan is in place is that it would require an improvement scheme to be prepared, which removes the whole of that area from our district planning scheme, and a new scheme would have to be prepared by the Commission. We don't know what would be included within that new scheme provisions. We would lose an ability, if you like, to assess that formally and that to come to council, because at the moment you've got your district planning scheme that governs what happens within that area. So effectively, you lose your power as a local planning authority to guide and inform decisions by removing this from your district planning scheme.
Thank you, Mr Dixon. Have you got a question, Councillor Figg? Yes.
I was just, it's only occurred to me now, but I was just wondering if this would affect our ability to purchase strategic land for the city in any way. Would it make it more difficult? Would it make it simpler?
Mr Dixon?
No, it wouldn't. I think you can still look to acquire land, whether it's in an improvement plan and scheme separate from ours or otherwise.
Thank you, Mr Dixon. Any other questions on this item? Okay, we're looking at 4. Anyone who wants to speak for the recommendation? If no one wants to speak for the recommendation, councillors, please cast your vote. Unless, sorry, just a minute. Deputy Mayor Rowe, do you want the right of reply for this? Because you moved this. Oh, Councillor Herridge, do you want the right of reply? Let's vote. Okay, let's vote. I don't know what to do with this one. Voting on 1 and 4, and whether you support the improvement plan or don't support, as it's written. Do you support, as the recommendation is written, the recommendation is that council does not support the establishment of a proposed improvement plan. So therefore you either vote for that recommendation or vote against that recommendation. So do you want to re-vote? Are you happy? Okay. Councillor Smith, could you please show your vote? I don't know what to do. I'm going to go against. Okay, so item 1 and 4 has been lost and the recommendation has changed. So therefore, we have to have an alternative for that, don't we, or an amendment? We support it, so that's fine. Okay. So I can't read the fors and against. They've cleared it. So against was myself, Councillor Wright, Councillor Miles, Councillor Coetzee, Councillor Bedworth, Councillor Moore, Councillor Huntley, and that is it. Everyone else was for. Thank you. Okay, we move on to item PSO2 1223, the close of advertising of the Alkimos Eglinton Development Contribution Plan, Annual Cost Review of Costs 2023-2024. Do I have a mover for this item? Councillor Miles, and seconder Councillor Figg. Councillor Miles, would you like to speak to this?
No, I'm happy with the report. Thank you, Mayor.
Councillor Figg, would you like to speak to this item?
I'm also happy with how the report's been done. Thank you.
Okay, do I have any speakers against this item? If there are no speakers against this item, councillors, cast your vote. And that was carried unanimously. We now go to item PSO3 1223, close of advertising Yanship Two Rocks Developer Contribution Plan, Annual Review of Costs 2023-24. Do I have a mover? Councillor Miles, and a seconder? Councillor Huntley. Councillor Miles, do you want to speak to this item?
No, I'm happy with the report, Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Huntley, do you want to speak to this item?
Happy with the report, Mayor.
Thank you. Do I have any speakers against? If there are no speakers against, councillors, please cast your vote. And that was passed unanimously. We now go to PSO4 1223, consideration of local development plan number 3 at Two Rocks Town Centre. We have a few declarations of interest, and I would like to declare a declaration of interest with regard to item PSO4 1223. I disclose that I have been a social member of the Sun City Yacht Club. As a consequence, there may be a perception that my impartiality on the matter may be affected. I declare I will consider this matter on its merits and vote accordingly. Councillor Miles, you have a declaration?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Also on PSO4 1223, with regard to the item, I disclose that I am the Commodore of the Sun City Yacht Club at the Two Rocks Marina. As a consequence, there may be a perception that my impartiality on the matter may be affected, and I declare that I will consider this matter on its merits and vote accordingly.
Councillor Wright.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to withdraw my impartiality declaration. As there's been an update since last week, I've now stepped down as chair of the tourism group. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Wright. Who would like to move this item? Councillor Figg.
With regard to item PS04-1223, I disclose that due to submitting to this LDP on behalf of the local residents group, that I may have as a consequence, there may be a perception that my impartiality on the matter may be affected. I declare that I will consider this matter on its merits and vote accordingly.
Thank you, Councillor Figg. Do I have a mover? Councillor Miles. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Parker. Councillor Miles, would you like to speak to this item?
No, Mayor, I'm very happy with the report.
Councillor Parker, would you like to speak to this item?
No, thank you, Mayor.
Are there any speakers against this item? If there are no speakers against this item, councillors, cast your vote. And that is passed unanimously. We now go to Infrastructure and Capital Works, ASO 1-1223, the Alkimos Aquatic and Recreation Centre project update and design options. I will move this item. Do I have a seconder for this item? Councillor Parker. Okay. Exciting times deciding on how this new community centre is going to be built and putting it out for architectural design. This is moving quite rapidly. I'm really excited that we will hopefully get the architectural design back fairly shortly and move it out for tender and get that building built. It's really progressing very well. Thank you very much to all of admin who've worked really hard to progress this item. And also thank you to the state and federal government for their funding to help us move this ahead and get this going for the community of Alkimos. Councillor Parker, would you like to speak to this item?
Oh, yes. Every time this item is presented, I do a happy dance. The Aquatic Centre is well overdue, badly needed, and another one of the city's long-awaited and promised developments. I would just like to thank the team who are working tirelessly in order to ensure this development is state-of-the-art and another community asset all are proud of, and I absolutely endorse the recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Parker. Do I have any speakers against this item? Councillor Miles?
Thank you, Mayor. I don't have a speaker against the item. I'd like to move a procedural motion that this item be referred back to the Alkimos Aquatic Recreation Centre Working Group, for which, and also then back to a forum and then back to Council by March, April of next year. The reason for that, Mayor, we have 4 brand new councillors this year. This is the largest independent one-off purchase that we're looking to do, and I want to make sure that all of our councillors are fully established on its costs and also what's involved in the actual design. I was on the last Alkimos Aquatic Recreation Centre Working Group. There were many discussions at that very last meeting about 4 weeks ago. The CEO, the former CEO, I should say, attended. He told us at that time that he had some concerns, and I believe that we need to ratify some of those concerns through the working group, because it hasn't been back there since the new election, and I'd like to see that happen. Then it come back to a forum and then back to this council by March, April of next year.
Do you have a seconder for this? Councillor Coetzee. So, yes, Councillor Smith. Would you like to speak to this item, Councillor Smith?
Yes, thank you. I just have a question in regards to that timing. I'm aware of pushing it out further. Is March the earliest that it could come back? Could a special meeting of the aquatic group be called earlier? Could it come, and then could it come to forum earlier?
Mr. Singh.
Thank you, Mayor. I think the first available opportunity for project working group will be late January, early February, if we can schedule a meeting within the availability of council members. And then forum, I think, will be either February or could be March, and then council meeting, council report could be March or April, depending upon the schedule we can find. So that's looking at about 5 months delay on this project.
Deputy Mayor Rowe.
Just to ask a further question, because I'd like to be informed as to the implications, could the director just clarify that previous comment? Is there either a material or potential delay to the delivery of this project because of the procedural motion that's been put forward? I just would like that clarification, please.
Mr. Singh.
Thank you, Mayor. There is another implication is there are 2 funding agreements which we need to go back to both government, state and federal government. The state government agreement has been signed by the minister. It's with us to review and approve from here. And the federal government agreement, draft agreement, has been received. Depending on council decision tonight, if whatever happens, we'll have to go back to the department and discuss the change in scope, and then get that ratified by council as soon as possible to secure that funding.
Mr. Singh or Ms. Jennings, would a further delay of 5 months risk the grant funding for either state or federal government?
Thank you, Mayor. I can answer that one. I think, as I said earlier, both funding agreements are with us to consider and approve and sign. Obviously, if there's a delay in the project, then we'll have to go back to department and seek what they can do. There could be a risk to that funding in that case.
So just to clarify that, if we, Ms. Jennings, did you want to speak to that as well?
I just, Mayor, just to add, because we were going to go and negotiate those anyway at the moment, after tonight if it went through, because we'd have a change in scope. So what we're also delaying is that negotiation, because it'll have to come back here at some point to also decide on, well, depending on what the committee and the forum do, whether there's a change of scope or not as well. So it is probably, whilst we can take out the summer months, because maybe we wouldn't have, you know, been able to negotiate, but you're probably losing at least 5 months in the schedule.
Okay, any other questions on the risk? Yes, Councillor Parker.
So I'm going to go to audit and risk here and just think about this. If there's any
Mayor,
risk-
point of order, Mayor.
Yes,
there is no discussion.
No discussion.
No, there is no discussion. It's a procedural motion to send it back as
Thank
I
you,
requested.
Councillor Miles. I have just corrected that.
Thank you.
Okay. So we will go to the vote now, whether we will send it back with the procedural motion or not. Yes, if you want it to go back. No, if you don't want it to go back. Procedural motion is lost. 5 were for the procedural motion, which was Councillor Bedworth, Councillor Moore, Councillor Coetzee and Councillor Miles, and 9 were against, which was Councillor Figg, Councillor Parker, Councillor Huntley, Councillor Seif, myself, Councillor Rowe, and I have lost the 4s and the guests, guys, Councillor Herridge, Councillor Wright and Councillor Smith. So now we will speak to the substantial. Do I have any speaker against this project? Yes, Councillor Rowe.
Question for clarification on the recommendation on page 132, Mayor. Number 2 lists additional funding of up to 10 million in 2025-2026 Capital Works program. Can the administration please clarify that Capital Works program is a consideration as part of the elected members' budget process?
Ms Jennings.
Mayor, if you're asking, is this coming up at the forthcoming budget workshops, the answer will be yes, because that's where the consideration will occur.
Thank you. Is that a question, Councillor Wright? Councillor Wright.
Thank you, Mayor. Just in regards to the Capital Works program, if this funding is allocated, does this then impede on the resourcing of the delivery of the Capital Works program, and is any other projects, will they be affected if we have to bring this item to 25-26?
Ms Jennings.
Mayor, the suggestion is to use a reserve, and at this point that reserve hasn't got enough money in it for what it's next earmarked for, which is the regional open space at Elcamos. So as I mentioned last week or at the forum, I can't remember where, we would have to continue to top it up to be able to get enough for the regional open space at Elcamos. That's the next one that we'd be looking at in terms of what's in the long-term plan.
Thank you, Councillor Wright. Do you have another question?
Thank you, Mayor. Sorry, that didn't answer my question. It was in regards to the resources. If we were to allocate this amount in the 25-26 Capital Works program, will this then delay any other projects due to redirecting staffing resources to work on this project in the years 25-26?
Ms Jennings.
Apologies, Mayor, I was thinking of dollar resources. In terms of the people resources, they'd already be working on this project. This is just additional funds to actually be able to pay the bills. So the people would already be working on, haven't been allocated.
Thank you. Yes, Councillor Herridge, a question?
Just a quick question, please. Can I just clarify, the Regional Recreation Reserve, is that solely for Elcamos, or does that include Kingsway as well?
Ms Jennings.
Thank you, Mayor. The purpose of the reserve can cover any regional recreation area. What I answered was what was next in the long-term financial plan in terms of where it's allocated.
Thank you. Any other questions on this item? Councillor Miles.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Look, just to follow on, because obviously the project has a substantial shortfall. Administration is obviously going to have to discuss that issue with council during the budget session for next year, next year coming. So the possible $10 million shortfall, where would administration get that money from next year if the council doesn't approve the extra in the budget process?
Ms Jennings.
Mayor, I can't find anything if the council hasn't approved it, so it's I'm not independent, running independent of the council. I think that's what the question was, so perhaps I could get some further clarification, but I certainly can't allocate it to the budget if the council isn't approving to allocate it to the budget.
Thank you, Ms Jennings. Any other questions on this item? Yes, Deputy Mayor Rowe.
Can I seek to clarify with the administration if the regional reserve can fund both Kingsway and Alkimos, regional open space or regional space, is there a separate reserve that would also be used to assist and support capital facilities at Kingsway? Or is it essentially the case that to deplete this reserve as it will be topped up for the purpose of diversion to Alkimos would have a negative consequence on the Kingsway regional open space?
Ms Jennings.
Thank you, Mayor. Kingsway has not used this reserve before. We've always had some funds that we've been able to put to Kingsway, and depending on the project, that could likely happen again. The reason we've got this reserve is because actually developing it from scratch is when we need the most money, because it can take, 50 million to go from scratch. Whereas now at Kingsway, we're either adding a room or adding maybe something like a stand or whatever. So they're smaller amounts than when we're building a regional open space from ground zero. So it depends on the project. At this point, we haven't got any in the long-term financial plan earmarked to use this reserve. That doesn't mean there's nothing in there for Kingsway, but in answer to the question about this reserve, there's not something earmarked for this reserve at the moment.
Thank you, Ms Jennings. Councillor C.
Thank you, Mayor. I just have a question. So do we have two separate reserves? Do we have a reserve that's there for the creation of new assets and a separate reserve for the maintenance of existing assets?
Ms Jennings.
Thank you, Mayor. We do have an asset renewal and sort of replacement reserve, but again, it depends on the project. So there's some things that we'll pay for out of municipal and not need to go to the reserve for it. It's usually quite major things that we're using the reserve for.
Thank you, Ms Jennings. Any other questions? Any speakers against? Councillor Miles.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Whilst I have made these comments in this chamber over the multiple years that this project's been around, the project has escalated from the original idea of this council of around $35 million. We're now approaching $80 million and it hasn't even gone out to tender. And I'm hoping that administration's quantity surveyor has got their numbers correct on this. Whilst I in total support of delivering the Alkimos and Northern Corridor a 50-metre swimming pool and the 25-metre pool going forward and some other ancillary pools, the other parts of this facility is obviously being funded by DCP, developer contributions that are rightly needed for the area, and that's the indoor stadium. But I have, as indicated, I have real concern over the capital outlay that we're pretty much deciding on tonight. There's no coming back from your decision tonight as a council, and locking in place a design that could be seen in the wider community as maybe a bit gold-plated because we're not being responsible in what we're building. City of Stirling have, I think, 4 pools, and I think most of them are not even covered. They are heated but outdoor. And I think that's some of the things that we should have seriously looked at. Whilst I understand the 50-metre pool is an outdoor pool and it will be heated, and how the heating is going to happen is yet to be decided. But I can only say that I am very concerned over the cost escalation. It was told to us, as I said, in our Alkimos workshop meeting about 4 months ago. For those councillors that were there, they would know what was told by the administration at the time and how they were going to attempt to try to rein in some of that cost, which they have reined in some of it. But I was hoping that administration would have the feedback and tender for the Lansdale Library, which would give us an indication on whether our quantitative survey work is pretty much spot on to what the community expect, or to what the design and what we projected the cost to be. So if the tender for that has come in at around $11 million, then obviously we know the quantity surveyor is correct, and the costs illustrated in this report will be pretty much true and not expanding. But I have to reserve the fact that I am very concerned, and I think, and just the last thing that I will touch on, Mayor, why do we bother having a working group if we haven't met since October, and this was rushed into the forum 2 weeks ago? I have to question why that was the case, and that councillors didn't get especially the working group, didn't get the opportunity to cover over the documentation, the design, and what was going to be removed.
Ms Jennings, would you, Mr Singh, would you like to speak to that, please?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I think it's a timing issue depending on the state of the project at the moment. Given that project working group was reconstituted after the elections, and due to the timelines we have, keep the project progressing, we presented that report, which would have gone to project working group, to the forum, and that's where we have some discussions and took the feedback from council members.
Thank you. Any speakers for the item? Yes, Councillor Figg.
I would like to start by saying that I do acknowledge Councillor Miles's concerns with some aspects of the project. In saying that, I think it's correct that timing is the major issue. If we look at when the city has received funds for this project, it has been a couple more years where the cost has escalated significantly across the industry, which I think is probably the major component of the cost escalations that we're having now. It's obviously a lot of money. We know it is, but it's going to serve the entire western half of the city, or northwestern half of the city of Wanneroo, and I would imagine further parts of the city of Wanneroo, while we have some other pools out of action over the years as they do get maintained, along with Alkimos as well. I think it's a fantastic plan. I do think it comes with a large price tag, but it's one that is worth keeping to. I think it is it's transformative for the area, and I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Figg. Do I have a speaker against? If I have no speakers against, councillors, well, I have the right of reply. First of all, this is time sensitive. It is actually time sensitive. I know it's time sensitive. If we don't act on the grants that we've been given, it's quite serious that we need to treat it as time sensitive. And also, it's time sensitive in that we don't have a 50-metre swimming pool in the whole of the city of Wanneroo. It's time sensitive that it's a long way behind. It's also time sensitive if we delay further, costs will escalate further. It's about time to get the architectural design done, the dollars written very, very clearly, and then work to that outcome. At this moment, we're just going backwards and forwards. So, councillors, I ask that you support this, and we can work towards establishing the first 50-metre swimming pool in the city of Wanneroo, along with a basketball complex as well, which is paid for under the DCP, and any cost escalations on that part of it will be covered by the DCP. Thank you. Councillors, cast your vote. Okay, I declare the substantive passed with 12 for and 2 against, Councillor Bedworth against and Councillor Miles against. We now go to corporate strategy and performance, business and finance, the financial activity statement, CSO 1/12/23, for the period ended 31st of October 2023. Do I have a mover and a seconder? Moved Councillor Berry, seconded Councillor Figg. Councillor Berry, would you like to speak to this item?
No, thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Figg, would you like to speak to this item?
No, thank you.
Do I have any speakers against? If there are no speakers against, councillors, please cast your vote. And I declare that passed unanimously. We now go to item CSO 2/12/23, the 2022-23 annual report, and I will move that item and Deputy Mayor Rowe will second it. Well, once again, we have another award-winning report. Thank you, Ms Jennings and the team that's put this together. It shows the strength that we have as a city, both in council, our administration, our planning, and what we are doing successfully for our community. Thank you to administration and all the effort they've put in putting it together. And Deputy Mayor Rowe, would you like to speak to this item?
Only briefly, Mayor, just to note that this process, council members have really been committed to the idea of transparency, not that it's just in the local government reforms, but it's one of the key governance principles for our organisation. And as part of that transparency, we like to share with our ratepayers how we are doing our job, how we are representing them in this chamber and in the variety of other committees that we volunteer our time on. So it is good to see an updated list of council member attendance, which is on page 221 of our agenda. It explains our attendance at council meetings, briefing sessions, forums, and a variety of other committees as well. And page 224, for the purpose of transparency, discusses our remuneration and claims made by councillors. So when members of the public ask if council is being transparent and open in what we are doing, yes, we are. It is in our annual report. So I look forward to this being hopefully adopted and for the community to be able to access that information.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Rowe. Do I have any speakers against this item? If there are no speakers against this item, councillors, please cast your vote.
Sorry, Mayor.
Sorry, Councillor Wright, we've already started to vote.
Oh, I just had a question. I've noticed, I haven't had a chance to email administration, but there's some committees that are missing still from the annual report. Can they be added at a later date or not?
If you could...
As they're minor changes?
No, we're approving it as it is now. And we've already voted. We've got 9 people voted already, so we've already gone to the vote. Ms Jennings, did you want to respond to that in any way?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm without knowing exactly what the issue is, if it's very minor sort of administrative of, you know, something like a spelling mistake, I can fix that. It just depends what it is, Mayor.
Councillor Wright?
It's just in regards to actual missing committees.
Okay, we'll just void the vote for now, please. We will re-vote. What are the committees that are missing, Councillor Wright?
Just from, I know at least my one, I know I'm missing the Business and Tourism Advisory Group, and I think that's the only one I'm missing on my name. I haven't had a chance to go through everyone else's.
Ms Jennings?
Thank you, Mayor. Well, if the council are happy for me to check Councillor Wright's committees, I don't know off the top of my head, but if that can be understood as part of the motion, I can have a look at that and just make a last-minute fix if it's missing.
I'm happy to have that correction within the annual report. Are you happy, Deputy Mayor Rowe? Okay, so now we will go to vote again, but we will vote as amended with the committees corrected for Councillor Wright. Okay, it's passed unanimously. We now go to item CSO 4/12/23. Oh no, item CSO 3/12/23, the annual audit financial report for the year ended 30th of June 2023. I have a mover, Deputy Mayor Rowe. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Parker. Deputy Mayor Rowe, would you like to speak to this report?
Only to thank Council for the opportunity to be the new chairperson of the Audit and Risk Committee, and just to explain to new councillors in particular, before I came into this place, I was not aware of how detailed the auditing process and risk management that the city undertook was. So when you're a member of the public, perhaps you don't understand that we are internally, externally audited, and we also are very transparent in bringing reports back to full council, and wherever possible that those reports are released into the public. So in terms of the commitment that the council has to being both detailed, comprehensive and also transparent on our auditing, it is good to see. So I'm pleased to see the report here, and I offer my full endorsement.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Rowe. Councillor Parker, would you like to speak to this item?
Nothing further to add, thank you, Mayor.
Do I have any speakers against this item? If there are no speakers against this item, councillors, please cast your vote. I declare it carried unanimously. We go to item CSO 4/12/23, warrant of payments for the period to the 31st of October 2023. Do I have a mover and a seconder for this, please? Yes, moved Councillor Sveef. Seconder, Councillor Herridge. Councillor Sveef, would you like to speak to this item?
No, thank you, Mayor.
Councillor Herridge, would you like to speak to this item?
No, thank you, Mayor.
Do I have any speakers against the warrant of payments? Councillors, please cast your vote. And that item was passed unanimously. We now go to CSO 5/12/23, change of valuation of land method, 96 Gibbs Road, Nowagup. Do I have a mover for this item? Councillor Miles, seconder, Councillor Huntley. Councillor Miles, would you like to speak to this item?
No, thank you, Mayor. The report says it all.
Councillor Huntley, would you like to speak to this item?
No, thank you, Madam Mayor. I think it speaks for itself. Thank you for doing that report.
Thank you. Do I have any speakers against this item? If there are no speakers against this item, please, councillors, cast your vote. So we have one against. I declare it passed. One against is Councillor Wright. Everyone supported it. Thank you. Oh, sorry. Oh, that should have been a yes. Can we change that to a yes so it's unanimous? Okay.
Sorry, Mayor, I did click yes.
So so that is, Councillor Wright did support that, okay? So we can move the no to a yes, so we've got 14 for that item. Are you going to correct it for us? Thank you, Ms Smart. Okay, we now go to item CSO 7/12/23, donations considered by Council December 23. We have a declaration of interest.
Thank you, Mayor. I don't think it's a controversial one. In relation to item CS 07/12/23, I disclose that I am a board member at Burbridge School and Roseworth Primary School. As a consequence, there may be a perception that my impartiality on the matter may be affected. However, I declare that I will consider this matter on its merits and vote accordingly.
Thank you. Any other declarations? If there are no other declarations, do I have a mover for this item? Moved Councillor Herridge. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Seave. Councillor Herridge, would you like to speak to this item?
No, thank you, Mayor.
Councillor Seif, would you like to speak to this item?
No, thank you, Mayor.
Any speakers against this item? Okay, councillors, cast your vote. And it was passed unanimously. We now go to item CSO8 1223, donation to the Lord Mayor's Distress Relief Fund for the Mariginup bushfire appeal. I will move this item and Deputy Mayor Rowe will second it. Councillor Miles has an amendment and Councillor Moore is seconding it. Councillor Miles will go to the amendment. Would you like to speak to the amendment, please?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor, and thank you, councillors. With regard to the amendment, the proposed amendment is that the donation amount in Part 2 of the recommendation be increased from the $10,000 to $100,000, and Part 3 and 4 be inserted as shown on your amendment proposal that you should all have on your desk. Overall, the Mariginup fire, which was devastating, it was our devastating Black Wednesday when it happened. And can I say that at the outset, Mayor, I am, as you suggested the other week, very impressed with not only our own staff and commitments by councillors that were out there taking calls, directing traffic. I know people did everything that they could in their own possible way. But I do, as the ward councillors, both Councillor Moore and myself, we do also want to put a real big congratulatory note in and gratitude on behalf of our community to those Bushfire Brigade volunteers that are still out there in the coming days and weeks because of the peat fire in and around the Mariginup Lake. And so they are still spending many, many hours out there. I'm asking Council to support the amendment to donate on behalf of the City of Wanneroo Road, of the City of Wanneroo residents, the $100,000 to the Lord Mayor's Stress Relief Fund. The current appeal is set up to help Mariginup residents directly. That's what the Lord Mayor's appeal is for. It's something that, you know, it takes quite a bit of help. They are a charity under that fund. It was when I was researching, it was actually set up back in the days when the dwelling up fires were started, which was horrendous for the state of Western Australia. And that is the same year that our voluntary bushfire brigade for Wanneroo was also established. So that's why those fires down at dwelling up helped set up quite a lot of voluntary capacity within our local councils, and obviously even today we're still being used. I ask for your support, councillors, because there are people out there today that are still wandering around their charred properties trying to establish what can they do, what can they salvage, how can they, some of them it was their workplace, not only their living space. They got no workplace, they got no living space. They are obviously helping, people are helping them to get by and dropping off whatever's needed to help them by. But one of the things that most people need in today's world is actual financial assistance. That's what this fund was set up to do, and that's why we should help as much as we can. And this is by way of the $100,000 on behalf of the City of Wanneroo ratepayers and residents. I'd like to you to all support this amendment. Thank you, Mayor.
Councillor Moore, would you like to speak to this amendment?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As the recently elected councillor to the Central East Ward, it will come as no surprise that I enthusiastically support this amendment put forward by my fellow ward councillor, Councillor Miles, and I thank him for proposing this amendment. I also want to thank the City of Wanneroo for their incredible support during this period, the staff, the constant updates. We really rallied together as a team around these families. The community within our ward was greatly affected by these devastating and unexpected fires, and should the City Council vote to support this donation, I know it will make a difference in not only the lives of those affected who have lost homes and buildings, but also in the lives of those in our community, supporting their friends and family through the recovery period. I myself have lost a home to a fire many years ago. So I recognise just how difficult this next stage is going to be for those residents affected by this fire, and the benefit of having a supportive community around you. So I thank the Lord Mayor and the City of Perth for activating the Disaster Relief Fund, and I humbly ask for the support of this amendment today. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Moore. Do I have any speakers against the amendment? Councillor Wright, you've got a question.
Thanks, Mayor. Just in regards to recommend in the amendment point number 3 and administration's comment, I'm just wanting to make sure that the current donations budget still sits at 15,000, so it doesn't lock other community groups out from applying for donations. So can the 100,000 entirely come from the city's overall operating expenses as per admin's comment? So if any community groups want to apply for the rest of the financial year, that donations budget has not been exhausted.
Ms Jennings.
Thank you, Mayor. The mid-year review will be happening almost as we speak. We're just waiting for the December period to finish, but people start looking at the mid-year review in November. We're using the November figures. So the idea is to have that donations budget go back to the 15,000. The timing will be pretty good. So if there's a donation that comes into that first council meeting, which is when we'll probably also do the mid-year review, I don't think we'll have a problem. So I understand exactly the question, which is why we're trying to make sure it's replenished.
Thank you, Ms Jennings. Do I have any speakers against this item? If there are no speakers against this item, we are voting on the amendment. Thank you, councillors. Can't see the vote, guys. And it was passed unanimously, 14 councillors. So now we will vote on the substantive, which is the donation to, as amended, the donation to the Lord Mayor's Distress Release Fund for the Meridian bushfire appeal. I would like to say, being on the ground and working with the people who lost their homes, and with the people who lost a large part of their homes, and the people who lost their businesses, this is wonderful to be able to help them. The team here at the City of Wanneroo has been amazing. DFES has been amazing, and the government agencies that have come on board to help have been amazing as well. But sometimes people just need dollars to be able to move to the next level of what they're doing. And because there are no administration fees on this fund, that is all covered by the City of Perth, and that the Lord Mayor's Distress Release Fund is purpose-driven for events like this, I'm really grateful that we can support it with this donation. So, councillors, I ask that you support this donation as amended to the Lord Mayor's Distress Relief Fund. Deputy Mayor Rowe, would you like to speak to this item?
Just 2 brief points, Mayor. First, I would like to thank both Councillor Miles and Councillor Moore for moving their amendment. I think they well articulated the reasons for moving it and why this council supported it. The only other point I wish to make is just to echo the sentiments of thanking the City of Wanneroo staff, and I suppose a comment for our new CEO, Mr Parker, who's joined us. What you've come into is an incredible organisation that stayed back at an evacuation centre after midnight to be able to brief affected community residents. Staff who returned to the evacuation centre the next day, staff who tried to have a skeleton crew at the city to be able to offer whatever support they could, and who immediately, when safe to do so, transitioned into the recovery phase. So in terms of demonstrating the effectiveness of the plans that are in place, the commitment that the staff have in this organisation, and the way in which council rallied around the organisation as a team, I think it was a demonstration in a time of crisis that this council, that this city and that this administration stands behind it. So, Mr CEO, I think you've come in to be able to see a really strong display of that team mentality.
Do I have anyone speaking against this item? Okay, councillors, cast your vote. And it was passed unanimously. Thank you, councillors. We now go to governance and legal, item CEO 11223. Do I have a mover and seconder? It's to approve, repeal and extension of review dates for council policies. Moved, Councillor Herridge, seconded, Councillor Bedworth. Councillor Herridge, would you like to speak to this item?
No, thank you, Mayor.
Councillor Bedworth, would you like to speak to this item?
No, thank you, Mayor.
Is there anyone who would like to speak against this item? There are no speakers against this item. Councillors, please cast your vote. And I declare it passed unanimously. We now go to item CEO 2-1223, review of the City of Wanneroo local laws under section 3.16 of the Local Government Act 1995. Do we have a mover for this item and a seconder? Moved, Deputy Mayor Rowe, seconded, Councillor Wright. Deputy Mayor Rowe, would you like to speak to this item?
No, thank you, Mayor.
Councillor Wright, would you like to speak to this item?
No, thank you, Mayor.
Do I have any speakers against this item? There are no speakers against this item. Councillors, please cast your vote. Okay, that was passed 13-1 and Councillor Seth was the only councillor that voted against it. We now go to item 9, motions on notice, and our first motion on notice is MNO 1-1223, Councillor Miles, the 2024 Australia Day Citizenship Ceremony change of date. Councillor Miles, do you have a seconder for this motion on notice? Councillor Moore. Councillor Miles, would you like to speak to this item?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. For those councillors that wouldn't have been here, I brought this issue up back in August of this year with the previous CEO, and I asked him to bring the item to council agenda for council to make the decision and not for administration to make that decision. And I want to make it clear, obviously, on the public record, Mayor, that for those that might be listening, it is not our current CEO. We need to make that very clear. Mr. Parker wasn't here. Mr. Parker wasn't here. It was Mr. Sims that made this decision. It is a decision that concerns me because whilst the report that's in the agenda highlights why the decision was made, ultimately, it should still be left to this council to make a decision when it has its events, not through any other means. And whilst I understand in the report it indicates it did go to the FACE committee to have a look at it, it still should have come to this council to formalise the event. And I'm not going to talk about it too much, but I am going to repeat what the minister said at the time when he actually made the change to the code, and it was very clearly done to help out the very small councils around Australia with regard to it. And the minister that did the change was the Honourable Andrew Giles. And in his press release, it says, and he quoted in the press release, it says, "It is also the day when more people become citizens than any other time of the year. And for those who have joined our great Australian community from all corners of the world, becoming a citizen is an unforgettable occasion to be treasured forever. It is the Australian government's strong expectation that councils conduct ceremonies on January the 26th. The Australian government implores councils to have new citizens as their key focus, recognising that many community members want to complete their journey to Australia's citizenships in connection with Australia Day." And he looks forward, and he goes on to say that he looked forward to joining the newest citizens at the National Citizenship and Flag Raising Ceremony, which is done on the lakes of Burley Griffin in Canberra. You know, I don't understand how we sort of got off track this year, and I'm not going to go and start pointing fingers. That's not my style. But I would just like this council to ratify what it states in the recommendation, that the decision in September of 23 to hold the 24 Australia Day Citizenship Ceremony on Saturday the 27th of January of 2024 in the Civic Centre, and approves that the date for the 2024 Australia Day Citizenship Ceremony to be changed back to Friday the 26th of January of 2024. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Miles. Councillor Moore, would you like to speak to this item?
No, thank you, Madam Mayor. I feel like Councillor Paul has spoken really well to this. Councillor Miles, sorry.
Thank you. Do I have any speakers against? Deputy Mayor Rowe.
Thank you, Mayor. I am definitely against this motion on notice. I'm not going to use this as a forum to prosecute the issue of when Australia Day should be celebrated. I will simply highlight the practical concerns that the administration have made a direct mention to in their report. We are approximately 6 weeks out from this event and venue has already been secured. The administration speaks to the other expenses and plans that have already been put in place. So, councillors, for purely practical reasons, regardless of where you sit in terms of when you think Australia Day should be celebrated, that is irrelevant in my opinion to this discussion. You just need to consider the practical implications and the reputational risk that would be associated with making a change this late, and that, Mayor, is the reason that I will not be supporting this motion on notice.
Thank you.
Question.
Councillor Huntley, yes.
Yeah, can I ask, looking at what Councillor Rowe has just stated, would there be an issue in changing this date back? Would it cause an issue?
Mr. Clem.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, quite significantly in terms of trying to book another venue and all the logistics of putting this event together, and that's why the administration's comment does refer to that. Obviously, Christmas just around the corner, so we would miss some time in being able to organise things. So it does cut the timing very short for us to be able to put on a citizenship award ceremony, given the short time frame.
Councillor Herridge, do you have a question?
Yes, please, Mayor. 2 parts. Do we know how many people this will impact, being that they must already be aware and have an invitation? And how long does it actually take to have this event organised?
Mr. Clem.
I'm sorry, I don't know the answer to that first question in regards to the number of people who would be attending, but I can find that out, Councillor Herridge. In regards to the second question, do you mean how long it would normally take to organise this ceremony? So I guess the answer to that question is the reason we did take it to Face Committee back in August was to allow us that time to organise this event. So that sort of 3 to 4 month lead in, or 4 to 5 month lead in time, gave us the best chance of making sure we were able to secure all the things we needed to secure to put this event on.
Councillor Smith has a question online. Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Mayor. I would just like to know if the invitations have already gone out or when they would be expected to go out.
Mr. Clem.
Through you, Mayor, and thanks for the question. Yes, invitations have started to go out.
Councillor Miles.
Mayor, Mr. Clem knew of this, met this motion 3 weeks ago. Administration knew of this motion before the fires. I understand the fires came along, but the administration shouldn't have been sending any invitations out until this council had made the decision on this notice of motion. So that does annoy me that, again, administration are charging on without getting some clear direction on different items from this council.
Thank you, Councillor Miles. Mr. Clem, were the invitations sent out before Councillor Miles put notice in of his motion on notice?
Thank you, Mayor. Yep, sorry, just to correct that, no further invitations have gone out since the motion on notice has been made aware of, but the item has been in the corporate calendar since prior to the motion on notice being noted.
I was at a function the other day and someone had already got their invitation and they would have got that, if no more event, they would have got that before Councillor Miles's notification, they told me that they were having their citizenship ceremony on the 27th. So some have already gone out before your motion on notice was received. Councillor Herridge.
Thanks, Mayor. Just on that line, I'm quite sure I attend a couple, like most, or at least one each time. I'm quite sure that the staff actually do offer the option quite some time in advance to citizenship award holders. So it's not just an immediate thing, it's across the year, maybe.
Mr Clem?
Yes, the option to have their citizenship ceremony on the Australia Day date or event is provided to recipients, yes.
Councillor Wright.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm not sure what you would like to consider if it is an amendment or an alternative. I do share the sentiments of Councillor Miles due to obviously everything that's happened this year with the referendum and that sort of thing. But I do understand the practical implications of this. Can I move an amendment for this to apply from 2025 and beyond? So this would be Council's position on whether they would like to hold Australia Day, the ceremony on Australia Day or not, to apply from, rather than changing it, considering that there's practical implications for this, can this be approved from 25 and beyond?
Just so that you know, the 2025, the discussion, which is going to be brought to forum, is the last Saturday in January. And in 2025, the last Saturday in January is the 26th of January. And this does need to be further discussed in forum and then brought back to council later.
So just confirming this will come back to us.
I think this is just about what's happening on the 26th of January next year or the 27th of January.
Thank you.
That's specifically for that. But there will be further discussion about this later on. Councillor Moore, did you want to speak? You reserved your right to reply, so would you like to speak to this item now?
No, thank you, Madam Mayor. You just answered my question. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, any speakers? Are we up to 4 or against? I think we're up to 4. Any speakers for? If there are no more speakers for, we will go and vote on this. Oh, close the debate, Councillor Miles.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Administration's comment is quite mixed, and it's sort of a whole mixture of things within it, especially because it's in the body of the report. But as far as the venue, there would be no change of venue. The Peter Moy School is they don't go back until after Australia Day, so moving it from the Saturday to the Friday wouldn't be a venue issue. And I'm sure that the One Voice Choir and other groups that are booked to be at our Australia Day event would bring their day forward by one day. It wouldn't be a concern for them, I would not think, councillors, because if you think about the date that has been selected anyway, it actually does break up somebody's weekend, especially a long weekend, if they are providing services to the city. Now, the attendees, i.e. the invitations, I know I got one from the Mayor's office for me to attend, which has come out, and probably other councillors did as well. But and a lot of that did come out last week when this notice of motion was on the agenda. I have had people from the community already reach out to me with different comments, mainly positive in regard to council trying to change the date, especially the former Chief Executive Officer. So with that, councillors, I do ask you to support having the Australia Day citizenship ceremony on January the 26th. And that is the date that our community has very much held for the last, I don't know how many years that I've attended them in this council, probably the last 15 years, and I would like to see it come back to the January the 26th. Thank you, Mayor.
I just want to clarify, have you discussed this motion on notice with the former CEO, have you? And that was why you made that comment in your right of reply?
Yes, so it was actually at a forum, Mayor. When the CEO, I brought it up at a forum, and also with the former Director of Community in Place, Debbie Terrelink. I asked him at that stage for it to come to Council. He suggested that it would probably come to the September forum, the September council meeting. It never did. When I followed up on that, he'd already moved position, and it was then coming into the election proper. And I didn't want this to come onto the agenda during an election cycle for the mayor and other councillors. So I waited till after the October election, and then I addressed it with administration at that stage again. And then just recently again, to get this, because the administration wasn't bringing a report to council, so I brought a report to council.
Thank you, Councillor Miles. So with that close of debate, councillors, please cast your vote. In the booth, can we please redo the vote, because Councillor Moore didn't vote the way she wanted to? We'll just re-vote on this item. Thank you. Declare the motion on notice lost. 5 for, 9 against. Those against were Councillor Figg, Councillor Parker, Councillor Seff, myself, Councillor Rowe, Councillor Herridge, Councillor Wright, Councillor Berry and Councillor Smith. Okay, we go on to the second motion on notice by Councillor Coetzee with the request to change the opening time of the Queen's Beach Caravan Park, Fred Stubbs Park, and I will second that as well. Councillor Coetzee, would you like to speak to this?
Thank you. As we all know, Frederick Stubbs Park is closed because of antisocial behaviour at night time. During the winter, it's from 8 p.m. and summer, it's from 10 p.m. and it opens up 6 o'clock in the mornings. I've received a couple of phone calls and basically from residents in that area, that's high risers. I'm not one of those. I like to sleep late. Who actually would like to park there in the mornings, go for a walk or have some quiet time or exercise or anything like that. They can't because the gate only open at 6 o'clock in the morning. So they park across the street at the coffee shop, and then the residents there who would like to go to the coffee shop can't because there's no parking anymore. So it's becoming a little bit of a problem. And people are starting to park in areas where they're not supposed to park. So the main thing is basically to move the time in the morning from 5 o'clock sunrise, which is 5 o'clock in the morning, to accommodate our residents who's early risers as well. It's on a time trial as well to see how it goes, and I don't think antisocial behaviour will make a problem there because it's already light in the morning. So I understand the whole problem because of nighttime darkened. So I hope everybody is in support of this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Coetzee. Yes, I'm in support of this, as changing the gate operating time for this trial is a reprogramming task, and it's quite simple, and it's just the current signage and messaging will have to be changed in regards to the gates opening and closing time. So it seems to be a fairly simple trial to see how the community go with that, and I'm quite happy to support that. Do I have anyone who wants to speak against this motion on notice? If there's no one to speak against this motion on notice, please, councillors, cast your vote. And I declare that passed unanimously. I have a motion on notice about funding for the Two Rocks Yes Cadets, which is the Youth and Emergency Services Cadets. I have a seconder, which is Councillor Figg. Derek and Moira Young have been passionate volunteers in the City of Wanneroo for the last 23 years. In this time, they have served and been leaders of the Volunteer Bushfire Brigade and run a local scout troop. They have also run the Two Rocks Cadet program with the Volunteer Bushfire Brigades. This group's name was changed to the Youth Emergency Services, that is the Yes Cadet unit, 18 months ago under DFES. DFES, and I have followed this up, DFES does not have any funding for the Youth Emergency Services Cadet unit. Not receiving this funding from the City of Wanneroo risks the continuation of this cadet unit of 40 youth with 10 on the waiting list. And it's interesting, we are training youth to be volunteers, volunteer firefighters, volunteer emergency service workers. And it's really important that whilst everyone wants, up in the small community up there, we've got 40 already part of it, and that Moira and Derek are doing this voluntarily, and they've got 10 on the waiting list, that we actually support our future volunteers in the City of Wanneroo. This group is totally reliant on fundraising to exist, and part of the fundraising is the $2,000 donation given by the City of Wanneroo each year. Fellow councillors, I ask that you support the continuation of the annual contribution for this cadet unit, and I'm sure the City will personally get in contact with Moira and Derek Young to follow up with future funding sources as well. But at this time, I think we should support this group, particularly after the bushfires and their training up our future firefighters, our future emergency service worker. Thank you. Councillor Figg, would you like to speak to this motion on notice?
I guess just very quickly, all in all, it's an investment of $50 for 40 young volunteers, per volunteer that is, I should say. And I think that's just, kind of speaks for itself. Thank you.
Do I have any speakers against this item? If there are no speakers against this item, councillors, please cast your vote. And that item has been passed unanimously. Urgent business, we have none. We now need to go into confidential. Do I have a mover to go into confidential? Councillor Wright. Do I have a seconder to go into confidential? Councillor Moore. Councillors, could you please cast your vote to go into confidential, please? So, okay, so the closing for confidential has been passed with 3 councillors against, which is Councillor Coetzee, Councillor Berry and Councillor Miles. So we will now go into closed session. Thank you.
It's consistent.
No. Okay, oh. Yes, we won opening the doors. Oh, against. Okay, for confidential CRO 1/12/23, council member, committee member and candidate code of conduct complaint administrator's report COW 8/23. This was passed 11-4 and 3 against, and those against were, can I have the against on the screen again, please? The for and against, sorry, for the previous.
Smith, which is what I've got. Oh, no, she wasn't.
Yeah. No. So the councillors, councillors against this item was Coetzee, Miles, Berry and Huntley. The councillors and the rest of the councillors supported this recommendation, which item 1 notes the findings are set out in the complaint administrator's report at attachment 1, and 2 notes that the City of Wanneroo Complaints Officer will advise the complainant of the findings, and that as the respondent is no longer a council member of the City of Wanneroo, council has no jurisdiction to take any further action. Item 12, the date of the next meeting. The next council members briefing session has been scheduled for 6 p.m. on Tuesday the 13th of February 2023 to be held at Council Chambers, Civic Centre, 23 Dundebar Road, Wanneroo. And item 13, closure. I wish every one of you a very blessed and Merry Christmas, a Happy New Year, and I now declare this meeting closed at 9:25. Thank you.